Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District here in Lakewood, Colorado. And joining me from his home on the Road of Enchantment in South Dakota, my partner and friend. You know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, Wes Brown.
Oh my God, Todd, that always takes me by surprise, but I'm glad to be here. This is a lot of fun, and we are on the Road of Enchantment, so it's always an enchanted place. So
you didn't know what I was going to where I was going to go this week, right?
But I love it. No, didn't know, but I'm just excited. We're back to a weekly, as people have heard last week, and I'm excited. This is what week 3.
Week 3 of the new year. And like you mentioned, we're back to a weekly and ultra excited. In fact, I wanted to share some metrics for the podcast that we received this week. This past year, we produced 27 episodes, over 61 hours of content, and we were downloaded in 56 different countries.
Wow. That's amazing.
Pretty cool.
That is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
The crazy thing is people are going to get twice as much of us this year. So lucky them, right?
I don't know if that's luck or not, but they're getting it no matter what. So, hey, before we get started today, I want to thank some people because we just wrapped up a show at Bit Factory. I want to take a moment and give a shout out and thank you to Bill Thomason, owner and gallerist of Bit Factory Gallery, for giving us the opportunity to present our showcase, West by Midwest, that featured the work of Megan Wilbar, Shannon Mello, and Mark Zimmerman. Hopefully you got to check that out. But Bill has been a huge supporter of the podcast, a great friend, and definitely a vital part of the Denver art scene. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Megan, Shannon, and Mark, for trusting in us, all of your hard work and effort, and participating in the showcase. And for those of you that came to the Artist Talk on January 7th, I'd just like to give a shout out and thank you to you guys. We had about 30 people or so, and it was a really lovely evening talking art. So if you showed up for that, we really appreciate you, and thank you for your support and supporting these artists that were part of the show. And then speaking of Bit Factory, and then I promise we'll get to some art, I want to mention Bill's next show opening this week, Friday, January 20th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Bit Factory. It's the 7th annual invitational group exhibition called No Show, featuring the works of multiple disciplines and multiple styles. It's always a fun exhibition and party. I even have a few pieces in the show this year. So come on down, bring a friend, and check out some fantastic art. No Show runs through March the 9th, and you can find out more details on Bit Factory's social media and on the website bitfactory.net. All right. If you've been tuning in the past couple of weeks, you know that we have a bit of a theme going on for the month of January. We've been featuring artists that are part of this year's Coors Western Art Exhibit and Sale that takes place during the National Western Stock Show. Our guest this week has been part of the Coors Western Art Exhibit and Sale for several years and produces exquisite ceramic and mixed media sculptures. You can experience her work online at her website, amylaugesen.com, and follow her on Instagram at Amy Laugesen. And Amy is spelled with a Y, and Laugesen is Laugesen. Amy, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me and welcome. Thanks for bringing me in from the San Luis Valley of Colorado.
Nice.
On this journey that you guys are in. What was the journey again that we're taking?
We're on this ride. We're on this ride.
Here we go.
And now you're part of it.
Yeah, thanks.
So
I'm on the bus.
You're on the bus. You're joining us from Crestone, Colorado. But you split your time, is that correct, from between Crestone and Denver?
Correct. Denver native, born and raised Denver, Colorado. And yes, now my husband and I have built a home here in Crestone, Colorado, and establishing a studio here in the valley, but I'm still going back and forth from Denver and to Crestone. Yeah.
And Crestone, for those of you that have never experienced it, is one of the most beautiful places on the face of the earth, down in the San Luis Valley. So what was the catalyst for you guys to decide to build a home in Crestone?
My husband found Crestone years ago, over 30 years ago, connected with this place, purchased property, and then when we married, and I was part of his journey of building a house here. So, yeah, pretty special place and incredible view from our vantage point here amongst the trees, and then overlooking the San Luis Valley. We're up against the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, just north of the Great Sand Dunes. He's a filmmaker, photographer, also way back when was seeking direction and place, and he found Crestone, and so purchased property, and then just 3 years ago, really we had started the process of building up here, creating a studio space and some outbuildings, and then eventually, so we could do some high-end camping up here, well, to be able to be up here, and then eventually started the home. And so now we're comfortable. It's still a work in progress, and will be forever probably a work in progress. But making dream happen.
That's so cool.
And as everybody knows, San Luis Valley is like Todd's favorite place in the world, or one of them.
Is it, Todd? I didn't know that. Okay.
It is. Yeah, it is. I definitely have a connection to a lot of people down there, and the land, and you never have to talk me into going to San Luis Valley. That's for sure.
Well, come on and visit, both of you.
I've been through that area a number of times, and it is gorgeous. The Great Sand Dunes to the south of you is an amazing place to visit, and it's a gorgeous part of the country. That's for sure.
And when I was growing up, we went to Denver East High School, and we had a geology class, and it was the first time we would take these incredible professor who would take us on these journeys throughout the Rocky Mountains and even to Mexico and the Great Sand Dunes to study the outcrop patterns. And one of the trips was to the Great Sand Dunes. And for the first time, I saw the Milky Way, and it was magical. And, Crestone just got dark sky designation.
Oh, nice.
Which is really wonderful to really keep that important element of this valley, and the quietness of the valley is another thing that people are working hard to keep this valley special that way.
Yeah, you don't realize, you just take it for granted that you can always see the night sky, but people from the city have never seen what you can see there in other places like Nevada. And so that's great that they got that designation, because I think that's so important to keep.
Yeah.
So I was in a snowstorm once at the Grand Sand Dunes with my dog and my wife and a couple friends. We got snowed on. I mean, obviously not very much, but we woke up in their snow, and it's like, but the wind was just crazy that night. So my dog was not having it.
And the dunes, boy, when they're covered with the snow, it's beautiful. A whole different, otherworldly landscape when you're in the dunes in a snowstorm. Yeah.
I feel like that just in general about the San Luis Valley. It's just otherworldly, and it has just this special energy. In fact, Crestone is like this huge spiritual center.
Correct. Yeah.
And I've experienced some of the monasteries, I guess, for lack of a better description. And I can't remember what road it is, but you kind of just drive down the road, and there's all these different spiritual centers.
Yep. Hidden around the Baca and the Grants and in Crestone. Yeah. So all around, which it was by design. Hannah Strong had a vision of helping bring in these spiritual centers and helping fund them, to bring them here. So, and it does have, I think there is also, I don't know enough, but definitely a draw, and has from the indigenous people. There's a draw to the San Luis Valley too, to sort of honor that connection with nature and a variety of different beliefs of why we're here on this planet. So, yeah. So I think Crestone is sort of the Mecca what draws people here. And then you have these incredible 14,000 foot peaks. So those climbers and people that love to hike and explore those are taking those journey up those mountains as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. So do you participate in the spiritual side of things?
I do not have a particular practice right now.
Okay.
My husband, what connected him here way back was Lindisfarne and then the Zen Center. He was an artist in residence at the Lindisfarne, and then it switched over to the Zen Center. And so he was able to stay and practice, and it helped ground him where he was in his life, and attracted him here. And I think I'm still in a quest, but I think the natural beauty and being connected to nature here is my spiritual practice. And definitely my art being part of is my spiritual practice. So, yeah.
I would say, when I can't speak for Todd, but I feel he's the same way, is that's kind of where my church is in nature. I absolutely, that's where I feel closest to any kind of spiritual being, is when I'm out in nature, and remove myself from, the everyday life of, I live in a small town, but, it's still the hustle bustle, and, a lot of, just being around people can be a little like edgy. And so to remove yourself, whether it's go up to the Black Hills, kind of has that same spiritualness, especially for the Lakota people. And I even feel like when we come out here in the summers at the Black Hills, I would feel very like there was something special about this place. So I feel fortunate to live here and experience that. And I'm just 10 minutes away. So you living right in that area, in the heart of that, I can imagine it's, very, very wonderful, internally, and, finding peace. And so that's awesome.
And it's been a little bit of an adjustment for me too, because living in Denver and the hustle and bustle of the city, and my connections there, my family there, and then also coming out to a place of isolation and quiet. It's incredible how you face yourself with that too. There's a lot of processing and self-awareness that you face that can be intimidating and a little frightening. When you're not distracted by the hustle and bustles of the city and a certain drive. And so there is sort of a quieting that I'm experiencing. I'm a little tangent, but my husband, because of this hard for me, challenge of cutting the umbilical cord and leaving Denver and living here in the San Luis Valley, he has been calling me the reluctant pioneer. And like, okay, I'm getting better, but there is that sort of letting go. And I think, I'm still in process of making that transition and really settling into this place and seeing where it leads me with my art.
Just talking to you seem like a very gentle soul and very peaceful. So, and I didn't know you before or anything, but boy, I can feel that from you anyway. So
I think there's a lot of noise inside my head and into my body that may not be on the outside. So I'm a little busy that way.
Unfortunately, I can't keep mine just internal. Like everybody is affected by it. So I'm just like crazy. Right, Todd?
You're crazy?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a little crazy.
Now, you two as artists, what do you respond to? Is there a muse? Is there something that in nature, you're both talking about nature and connecting, and as photographers and artists, what is it? Is there like one subject that you both gravitate to, or, individually, but
right. Yeah. I'm a landscape photographer basically, and a little bit of nature, and and that's not how I make a living. So I have to be careful about that, but that is nature. I've always fell in love with like Ansel Adams stuff early on. So I've kind of tried to, obviously I'm not trying to be Ansel Adams, but I do like to go out and chase light and just explore the beauty of nature in that sense. So kind of a landscape photographer, if I was going to label myself as anything, although always open to other ideas. I just, the one thing that I'm a little different as far as like artists, in a sense that the creativity doesn't come naturally to me. So I'm always have to like seek it. And it's probably because I don't like really delve into it. Like if I just like worked into the practice, it would definitely improve. Because I think Todd is a lot more creative that way than I am. But Todd, do you want to talk about your experience?
I'm more of a people photographer, and I'd say that was my forte, doing environmental portraits. And actually, I've done a fair amount for a project that's actually at History Colorado at the moment. And so I photographed a number of women from your area down there. And for me, I do enjoy getting out. Wes and I have done all kinds of little photo forays, and I enjoy that part, but it's not usually what I do. And I'm probably just more apt to, be happy just being out and about in nature. It really grounds me, kind of hits that reset button for me in the craziness of the world that we live in. I'm more apt to sit and watch a sunset than to set up my camera and photograph a sunset I enjoy doing it because it's kind of outside of my realm of what I normally do. And I appreciate people that do it well. But I always say that, I've some of the most fantastic photographs that I've ever experienced myself. I didn't actually take a photograph. I just sat there and took in the experience and just kind of was immersed in it. I grew up in Alaska too, so I have an appreciation of wild and open places. Mm-hmm. And so anytime that I'm in nature, I just feel like I'm at home, basically.
Yep. I feel the same. Yeah. And it's humbling, in the grand scale of the mountains here in Colorado and in this valley and the trees. And so you feel very small in relationship to the grandness of this landscape here, which is good. It's good to be humbled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we live in such an amazing, on such an amazing planet, in a state that's so beautiful, in a section of the United States that's so beautiful. There's so much diversity, and I don't know. People should take advantage of that and get out and see some stuff. And I'm always amazed when people haven't really ever spent time in Southern Colorado or ventured across the border into New Mexico. It's just stunning.
What I find here, and probably Todd, from the people that you've photographed here in the valley, the passion that is here. People are very passionate about trying to sustain the beauty of this place for future generations. And so they work really hard, whether it's water, whether it's the sound pollution, with the light pollution, and just trying to find that place where they can find their own inner voice and make a difference. It's a little crazy here too. There's a little bit of craziness here in the valley. But also part of the attraction and part of the beauty of the place, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The people that live in that part of the state, they're very connected to the land, where they're from. And I have appreciation, for that, because that's the way it works in Alaska too. And I think people that live in that kind of environment, they tend to be self-sufficient, and, they live in a very, like you said, they think about sustainability and are very practical and intentional in the way that they live.
And we're having to learn that a lot. We're off grid completely.
Wow.
So electricity is solar. We have propane gas. We have septic leach field. And so that's been a learning curve of, and like we were talking earlier, not sure because of a weather pattern coming through if we're really going to have great Wi-Fi reception. And so you have to become resourceful. And my husband is a bit of a MacGyver, so if he can, he'll try and fix it, and he'll try and Google whatever to try and realize it, or, consult with resources here to get things done. And so that's a big learning, but it's empowering to go back to that. So on one level, it has simplified things, but also it's a whole different, and going back to a way of living, it's also a little more complex on other levels. So,
That's admiring. I know one other person that's completely off the grid, a friend of mine that built a house, and it's completely solar and everything else. And so yeah, it's an amazing feat. And like you said, you got to adjust because of the weather and everything else.
Right. And resources aren't, you can't just call somebody. Sometimes you can. There's resources here, but it's not as quick as when you're in Denver and saying, "Ooh, okay, the plumbing's gone. Okay, we got to do what we can. We'll see if we can get somebody. Oh, our solar's down. We're watching our solar gauge, our battery power gauge, like the stock market, going, oh, okay, we may not be able to turn on this light or watch a movie tonight. We've got to, and so very aware of the workings of this house.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's crazy. So
good for you, though. I admire that, and and I know it's a struggle, and you just have to adapt. But I admire that. So,
and I guess the struggle is our choice,
right?
Which we're grateful and feel blessed that we've made this choice to live this way. And I'm grateful to be on this journey with my husband. I think he's sort of pulled me along, going, just trust me. Okay, we got this. We got this. I'm like, a little worried and fearful in the process, but keep trusting and keep moving forward and having faith that. Anyway.
It sounds like it gives you an appreciation for the simplest of things, right?
Yep, definitely so. Yep, and those pioneers, wow, amazing what they...
Right.
Maybe I was one in a past life going, oh man, I was already there. I already did this through this valley. Okay.
What's phenomenal too is the driving through there or just spending a little time. Just as we've been talking, it looked very overcast when you logged on with us today. It was snowing, and just a moment ago, and I can still see some contrast, but the sun came out, right? So, I mean, weather changes like in a split second. Yeah. And it's some of the most beautiful, if you're a photographer, it's some of the most beautiful light that you'll ever experience.
It's incredible. And my husband loves it, being a photographer, so he has been taking these photos just off our decks, not going very far. Sometimes he'll venture down a little bit lower elevation to get a certain shot, chasing the light. But there's been a number that have just been off our deck. So he goes, I'm becoming a little lazy, but hey, I have my tripod here and I can watch Kit Carson out the back, the back door here on our deck, and I can set up my tripod and just wait for the light with my coffee or my whatever imbibement, just so.
That's awesome. I love that.
I always drive my wife crazy as we're, driving through the valley or that part of the state because, she's like, are you paying attention to the road? Do you want to pull over and let me drive for a while? If you want to look at light, why don't you let me drive?
That's me and Stephen going, on the road, Hume, stay on the road. Hume, wait, no. And then he's also said, here, grab the wheel. I'm going to take this photo. No, don't do this to me. Have you done that, Todd? Telling your wife to grab the wheel?
No. Yeah, no.
I'm an OSHA mom. So here's the other, poor Stephen. I've become an OSHA mom trying to be, don't do it, get down from there. Don't stop. Okay. We're over an hour away from, medical facilities. So yeah, you do have to be careful out there.
Yeah.
What is the population of Crestone? Do you know off the top of your head?
Okay, I'm always really bad with numbers. I think about 120. I think there's about an 83 voting. Stephen will correct me, but I think there's about 83 residents here to 120. Yeah, I mean, wow. Vote 83. Okay, I could have this wrong. About 83 voting members in the town of Crestone. And then you have the expansion. So there's the town of Crestone, and then you have the Bach and the Grants, which then, aren't counted in that number. And I don't know those numbers. We're the ashrams and the spiritual centers and then other residents. Todd, where you were talking before, there's that area that extends beyond Crestone.
And a lot of artists, yeah?
Yeah. Artists, musicians. Yeah. So there's a real draw for the creative spirit here.
Is it a pretty connected community? Even though, I mean, just because there's a lot of artistic people there, doesn't mean that there's, that everybody's connected per se, but they're down there for a reason. And some of that is just to get away from everything. So I'm just curious.
I think it's mixed. So there is the town definitely brings people together, with the restaurant and the grocery stores and the brew pub. So there's that type of, and the post office, small town. But there are a lot of people that stay to themselves. So it's amazing how many people are in the valley and then we have not met. And COVID even restricted how much people gathered together. They also have wonderful music festivals and that sort of thing that brings people into the park over the summer. So it's mixed. That's a good question. So there are a lot of people that stay to themselves. Yeah.
And are there a lot of residents, and I'm curious, like yourself, that kind of split their time between Denver and Crestone?
Yeah, especially just fortunately, a lot of people can work remotely. So, and then there are those that need to travel, like myself, to be able for job, for income. So, yeah. And then also resources, whether it's Colorado Springs or Denver, a lot of people traveling between those two.
How long does it take you to get to Denver or the Springs?
So it takes 3.5 hours to get to Denver, and the Springs 2.5, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And more.
It's not horrible though.
It's not horrible. It's a beautiful drive. It's a really beautiful drive. Take it. You have some choices. You can either go through I-25 through Colorado Springs and then over the pass, or 285 to 17, and that's the route I love to go if the passes are clear. Now during the winter, some of these passes are brutal, and some of the snow blizzards across South Park is, oh my goodness, a little frightening. So a little white knuckle driving, but man.
Yeah.
The winds that kick up. You're talking about the winds. Oh my goodness. Sometimes the winds across this valley are insane.
Yeah.
That drive can be treacherous. I almost died coming back from the sand dunes, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, from camping at the sand dunes. And the roads are just icy enough. And this semi tractor trailer got sideways, and the trailer was coming into my lane. And I just thought, oh my gosh, okay, what am I doing? Am I just gonna totally ditch the car, or hope that he gets it straightened out? And he got it straightened out literally at the very last moment when I thought that's it, I got to just ditch it. He got it straightened out, and that's probably the most scared that I've ever been, ever. I was screaming inside, and I was a Boy Scout leader, and I had kids in my car, and one of the mothers of one of the scouts, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is it.
That's crazy. I didn't know that, Todd.
Wow, that's great. And we've had some close encounters pulling a trailer when we were moving stuff down here, and just stupid choices from jerks on the road that was risky. They just pulled ahead thinking they could pass us, and then almost clipped our trailer.
Man.
And I'm glad I wasn't driving. Stephen was driving. So, yeah. Yep.
You do a lot of different things involving sculpture. I want you to take a moment and talk a little bit about what all you kind of do and have your hands in.
I guess to start off, I'm trained as a mixed media sculptor. So I love it all. I really love different mediums. I geek out sort of different mediums and and process and learning. And so my journey, I guess, in the arts has just sort of been about that exploration and feeling also that those mediums have their own vocabulary. And so in combination, They complete the story of the piece, if you will. So if you might, let's say, so in school, I did a lot of work. I did some metal work, steel work, and handmade paper. So you have this solid steel frame, and then I would put overbeaten flax paper over this armature, steel armature. And so having that contrast of the strength of the steel and how fragile the paper is against that, this flax paper, when overbeaten in a Hollander beater, becomes like a hide over a drum. So it will, as it dries, it shrinks up against a form. And I loved playing with that. And so having that contrast of something rather permanent or assumed permanent with the steel, and then having something as fragile as the paper shrinking around it, tearing because of the stress points. And then over time will definitely, erode, weather away and not be there anymore. And then there is something that is left behind. So I think my work also continues a little bit of that with how these pieces look like they're weathered. They are of another time frame, and they are continuing forward in the future, developing patina with age. And maybe not all the parts are going to remain, but we will still get an essence of what that piece is about.
So the interesting thing about that, I'm glad you said that it looks aged, is when I look at your horses specifically, some of them look like you could have dug them out of like ancient Greece or Rome. They have that sensibility to them, the style of the sculpture, then like you said, the patina or the aging of the actual piece itself, even though it's not that old. It looks like it came from like the Roman Empire era.
And by design, and I love that, that's what inspires me. I think from a young age, I was always attracted to, in the Museum of Nature and Science, Natural History Museum way back, and then the Denver Art Museum, I was always drawn to the exhibits of artifacts. Maybe not knowing the artist, but these objects were created for play, whether they were temple toys or small clay ceramic toys for children, or just a response, an artist's response to what was around them. And definitely the horse, such an important, magnificent creature that has connected humans across this planet for hundreds of years. That's fascinating to me, that there's that deep-rooted story and connection from as far back with, the Lascaux Caves, the cave paintings. There's a horse in there. There is ivory or mammoth tuft horse, one of the oldest horse sculptures, what dates back over 40,000 years, something like that. Amazing, right? And then some of the ceramics that have survived, and then the Bronze Age. So then you've got these bronze artifacts. And so that's what inspires my work. It's that deepness. So I feel as an artist really wanting to reach back in time to make those connections, I guess some sort of artistic lineage, trying to reach back and then bring that forward into contemporary times where I am connecting with my own story and then trying to bring it forward. So yes, by my attraction to patinas or whatever surface treatment, yes, the intention of them to look like artifacts, relics from some time past.
I love the fact that you made this connection between spiritual and the horse, because in the Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota framework, their language, the Siouan language, horse is Sunkawakan, which is sacred dog. They used to travel by dog as carrying all their stuff. And then when the Spaniards brought the horse, then the horse became the burden, the beast of burden, so to speak. and they called him the sacred dog,
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
Horses of different colors, that is part of that spirituality of the horse with exactly.
Yeah. So I appreciate the fact that the whole, and, we just got done talking about horses with Jill, and, they're just a magnificent animal, and both Todd and I really love the horses. And so just, experience them with you in a different medium is really kind of cool.
Thank you. And Jill Sokup, oh my goodness, what an incredible woman, artist, and dear friend of mine. So have great admiration for her work, and Maeve Eichelberger, who you've had on here too, and so many artists communicating their connection with horses, and whether like Jill's work, that direct connection with horses, probably similar to mine, but in the painted medium. And then Maeve with the saddle and sort of the tack or riding gear. So the horse not there, except maybe in photograph on her pieces, but definitely that it's again that human connection with horse.
Yeah.
And my pieces come, so I have my own personal story with a horse, and so these pieces that I create also come from that relationship, that and tactile artists have to touch, very experiential learner, so hands-on, and it's then transferring, communicating, interpreting what I feel and experience, and then bringing it into that clay body, that medium that I choose to work with. I guess it's sort of part of my goal. What inspires me as an artist, and what I keep moving forward to try and discover in my work, and taking that subject of the horse, taking one subject and seeing where that subject leads you, because it's very rich. It's rich in heritage, rich in culture, rich internationally, and something that I think that story, whether it's not personally, right now I don't have a horse on my own. I get to borrow my friends' horses, and maybe a person doesn't have a horse in their life right now, but they may connect to seeing my work because it connects with something that's deeper inside of them, whether it's maybe a grandparent or a great grandparent or some sort of lineage and connection with horse there. So I hope that my work resonates with somebody on a non-verbal level, but something deep inside that goes, not quite sure why I'm something about what you have portrayed in this piece, I'm getting at a heart level, a deep level.
And it's definitely successful on multiple levels. I mean, I felt that. Obviously, Wes feels that. I adore what you do. Talk about your personal connection to horses. And you have a very interesting story with this horse, the horse you had growing up, Tic Tac.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Hopefully we'll see. Won't cry, but it's pretty profound. It's pretty deep when you have a horse come into your life that saved my life. So my personal story is, at a young age, really connecting with horses, growing up, going to the National Western Stock Show, and having friends right in the show. And so always having horses, even horses in preschool coming out in my work. And I'm going to sidetrack just a little bit because it's a little sort of funny, is remembering I have a strong memory in preschool doing a drawing of a horse, and it was a three-legged horse. And I remember my teacher saying, three-legged horse, there's no such thing as a three-legged horse. And I remember the sense of being, oh my goodness, a little annoyed that I'm drawing this horse. This horse is running. You can't see all legs when it's running. So it's three-legged. It's because it's running. Don't you get it? So anyway, the start of expressing yourself in art and sort of funny memory of being a little bit, somebody didn't quite get my artwork and I'm a little annoyed with that. But anyway, little sides. But so having, and then horses in other ways coming out in my work. And I then was diagnosed with being dyslexic in second grade. So challenges with reading comprehension, spelling, various struggles. And I started finding that art was sort of my language where I could excel, and brought me to adolescence. And I really had a struggle, that challenge of being a different style of learner, and that the school system really doesn't support that different style of learner, and that the arts are an elective and not an integral part. Sometimes it feels, should be required, right? So really challenged. And then adolescence is oh my goodness. It's challenging anyway, right? With all those changes in body and everything else going on and that craziness and stuff like that. And I became anorectic through that, trying to gain some sort of control. And so, but prior to that, I had been starting to ride horses in a barn close by to the house. So was at the barn as often as I could, started riding, started saving my money, would work at this barn, shoveling manure and whatever I could do to save money to buy a horse. And I got pretty sick, and ended up spending time in the hospital to try and get me to a place, my weight back up. And through the recommendation of a doctor to my parents, he recommended that, my parents should really consider getting a horse for me. And so I haven't really shared this in depth of the situation much. So anyway, and so as I was going through recovery and finally got my weight up and got released from the hospital, my father had my parents definitely feeling that the horse is important. And my father found a connection with a woman Benny Abbott, who had a horse rescue ranch in Arvada. And he contacted her and she said, and explained the situation. And she says, I think I have just the perfect horse. So my memory is going out to the barn for the first time. And here's where I might cry, is looking across as we arrived and seeing the face of that horse that she has selected for me, thinking it was perfect. And seeing him, and all of a sudden getting a feeling with inside going, there you are, my soulmate. Where have you been? And oops, I'm crying. And he became my responsibility to take care of. So he did come into my life at age 13. Was an amazing teacher. But he too had an abused past. And so in teamwork and coming together in friendship and relationship, both of us healed and regained confidence in each other, with each other in that relationship, and then just with everything, life around us. And so in me helping him heal from the memories of abuse, I was able to heal, giving me sense of purpose and confidence, and when I was writing him, and again, Bakhtov, whatever, he was an amazing teacher because, he wouldn't let me get away with much, right? So in that relationship, he is forever my muse.
Mm.
And I wanted to go to the Olympics. I had great visions, so became very serious writer, and my journey and growing in confidence. And I think that time in my life with him, and then I also had other horses that started coming into my life, and I was part of the pony club, and I was showing, I was doing eventing, so cross country, stadium jumping, and dressage. And wow, that courage and freedom that comes from, working with this amazing animal, this animal that also, if it didn't want you on your back, or if it didn't want you around, would make it really clear, So that dance, that partnership, that relationship was unbelievable. A lot of healing happened and just moved me forward. And then going off so in high school, deciding that I would, arts was definitely my path, my journey, and deciding to go to college for art. I had to leave him behind in Denver. I felt it wasn't fair to drag him along to different states and various things. And so found beautiful homes for him. And then I was able to, when he got old, needed to retire, was arthritic, had issues with allergies and breathing. He got to go back to Benny Abbott's property. She had promised way back when I got him that he's one horse that he's pretty special in that she didn't offer this to just anybody, but that he could come back to her property to retire and to live out his last days. And he did. And I happened to, after finishing my schooling and traveling around and coming back, I was there actually with him the day he died.
Mm.
Wow.
And so he is forever my muse. And even though my horses that I create in my sculptures are not direct representation of him, it is sort of through him and that tactile relationship of writing and brushing and all that these works come together. It's through a tactile memory. And I guess there's a constant, him not physically being here in form. I think now they're even more trying to reconnect with him, in spirit. So sometimes these pieces also sort of maybe get a little woo-woo out there, sorry, but trying to reconnect with that relationship that was so special. When you have a profound relationship with an animal like that, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, and again, for having an animal also sort of give me courage and strength and help me navigate this world that's pretty special. So, yeah. Hope
That's
that
amazing.
didn't stay out there. Sorry.
No, that's great.
No, that was a great story. And, I read a little bit about this horse, but didn't have necessarily the full context. And, so that was incredibly powerful. And, now it makes sense why the horse continues, like you said, to be your muse, and you continue to explore it, and you do it so well. So even from a young age, and I ask, I know a lot of people that are dyslexic. They tend to be very artistic, creative people, and some of the best artists that I know. And then we've had definitely a number of artists on the podcast that are dyslexic. Is being very tactile or in tune to those senses, is that a sign or a symptom of having dyslexia? Do you know?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. For me, yes, it is. That was for me. I don't know for everybody. Well, and my husband's dyslexic too. And he's chosen the medium of photography. So I think it's a way of seeing. I think it's a way, it's not a deficit. It's just a way of, okay, we have to learn how to navigate through the education system to help. So we're just a different style of we require a different style of learning, and we just see things a little differently. So it's just having the education system. And fortunately, there's so many more resources out there now than there were when I was growing up. I think, and then even, when my husband was growing up. So for him, being held back in school was sort of a solution, because the skills weren't up to, where to advance to another grade. Well, that's really hard on a student, and then I think they were still trying to figure out, is it about balance? Is it about coordination? Is it about what exactly is it? And I know there's still a lot of research in it, but definitely, and I had a funny so in applying, so I went to the School of Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and they are sistered with Tufts University to get your bachelor or master's degree. And so I was applying for the Bachelor of Fine Art degree program, and my counselor at the museum school was looking at my grades and showing how well I did, and then looking at my SAT scores and ACT scores and saying, I'm not a good test taker. So, and laughing, because she goes, okay, she sees this so often. And so to judge a student based on these tests, you are not understanding the whole student, and especially in an art school. So where it's very common for artists to maybe have some sort of form of dyslexia or, learning challenge or whatever, but being able to show that we may have to go find a little different way around it, but we'll get there eventually. And that's probably the story of my whole life, is it's not necessarily straightforward. It's a little bit of a meandering journey of like, okay, I'll get there. Okay, oh well.
But there's a beauty to that, the meandering, because you pick up so many different things through the process of meandering that you would have missed going straight through. Whether it's coping mechanisms to deal with reading and writing and spelling, because your brain is actually seeing things completely different than, for lack of a better term, and I use this lightly, the normal brain, in the sense that people that don't have it, you're literally seeing things differently. And you have to overcome that. You have to have strategies.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you addressed that, because, and things have changed, I think, for the better. But in the era when we're about the same age, in the era that we grew up, there weren't a lot of resources, and people didn't realize that, people learn, one of the things I love about this podcast is we kind of, you kind of get a sense of how different people think about things and how they process things. And I know in working with kids that you kind of see a little bit of everything, and you make that realization, like, not everybody learns the same. I surely don't. And I'm not dyslexic, or I don't perceive myself as being dyslexic, but I can read directions or instructions on how to do something 10 times and still not get it. But if I have pictures, or thank God for the era of YouTube, right? I'm like, okay, I totally get it now. Like, I see how it's done. And, but I'm a visual learner. And so there were certain subjects for me that were really difficult. And the same thing for folks that, are dyslexic or have some kind of other learning challenge. I like how you describe that, learning challenge, because the system is set up to teach a very specific way. And if you don't follow or don't fall into that way of learning, then you kind of get lost, or you get kind of pushed by the wayside. And it's spectacular when you actually get somebody, an instructor, an educator, a teacher that can explain things in multiple ways so that people that learn differently can get it. Yep.
And I'm a visual tactile learner too, just like you. That's the way I see it. I know I physically have to do it. to have that memory, to know, to see how the parts fit together. And I have had, speaking of teachers and professors, have I been blessed with people that have come in my life at the right time as mentors to help me through, those ups and downs, those mountains and valleys that we travel through in life, to keep me going, to keep me motivated and not losing hope. So I have just been so grateful through that, and that through elementary, through high school, through college, just incredible mentors to help me through. So, yeah.
Well, and this counselor that you were just talking about that said, hey, this is not the full picture. You're not getting the full picture just by, looking at these test scores of Amy's. Like that's, I like interacting with the kids that actually do process things differently. It teaches you a lot, as someone that's trying to teach information or a skill, right? And so I have an appreciation for that. I can imagine though it was difficult because kids can be pretty mean, right? And growing up and not having those resources and not having people that understood what you were going through, that had to be difficult.
And I think also the different levels of reading or various thing that you're put into in a classroom it's embarrassing when your friends are in a higher level and I'm hanging out with them, yet, they go into their reading group that is at a higher level, and then I'm put back down here. So it's a self-awareness, self-consciousness that was really hard on in my spirit. Something out of my control. And, but it's part of, right, there's the quote of turning those scars into stars or whatever. And it's part of my journey. Would I change it? No, because it's made me who I am. And it helped me make connections to that. I think continue to move me forward, feed my work as an artist. And so these challenges, these hurdles just have made me stronger. So I would not change it in any way, right?
It brought you to where you are today. Yeah.
It's great that you feel that way, that you take this thing that was really difficult and probably traumatic at times and go, make that realization that these are things that help form me. And even though they weren't pleasant, they still, put me on this journey, and you wouldn't change it.
And my parents, incredible parents, and I know I put them through hell. A middle daughter, oh my goodness, yeah, I put them through hell and some challenges. And yeah, them always being there, encouraging me, celebrating my unique voice and way of looking at the world and going with it, right? And helping me put things in place, like them. They're not horse people. They had no clue. And then having a daughter who strongly wanted a horse, not their other daughters, me, where did this come from? And then being okay with, as sort of a tool of healing, as, the best medicine, to being on board with that. Wow. I give them great credit. So, yeah. And my mom, my father has passed away, but my mom's still one of my biggest fans and cheerleaders, showing up and asking about what I'm doing and whether my horses are legged or legless horses, because some of them look like artifacts and are missing legs. So she doesn't get necessarily all that goes into it, but is always there as my cheerleader. So, and Dad, always there as my cheerleader. Yeah. And a great inspiration for, going back. Here's a little, okay, we're going to go down this sort of, here's my windy journey. Okay, bear with me. But connecting to materials that you guys had asked earlier on, I think my dad was instrumental in that. Had a wood shop. He was an attorney, but his hobby was he had a wood shop at the home in the basement and always set up crafts or painting purchase canvases and then have us do sponge painting, or having a box of scraps that we could glue together on boards. And if we had a vision or a project, he was right there helping us make it, sometimes taking it over because he wanted us to really excel. And but my love for tools and putting things together definitely came from my dad. So yeah. So
I love the story of you in preschool and your interaction with that teacher that said, hey, you know, there's only 3 legs on this horse. Like, what's going on? That could have been devastating, you know, it said in the wrong way. And I don't know how it was said, but that could have been devastating for a kid. And I know that happens all the time where teachers and educators are ultra critical of something. And it could have, like, you know, really crushed you, but instead you were irritated. Like, why didn't she get that? You know, why didn't she get the fact that you can't see the other leg because the horse is running? Come on. You know, I love that.
Did he know that? But it's funny. I think back at that, I'm like, wow, that must have been a really strong feeling, because I don't remember a lot at age 3, right? 2.5, 3. And to have that strong of a memory must have, I must have had I was pretty stubborn. I was a pretty strong-willed little girl at that age. So, as my parents will tell you. So I think that was part of it. And I now teach preschoolers, and I do my best to really honor and acknowledge and sort of listen to what the piece is about, not assume with my adult eyes that I know exactly what the whole story of their piece is, and really following the child to try and share what they are creating. And even to me or their parents or whatever, if it looks like a blob, there's an incredible, so many parts. You know, there's this whole fascinating, they're attracted to so many things, and they haven't put it all into this piece of work, this artwork. And so for me as a teacher, I love those moments. And I'm the mud specialist at this preschool. So I get to bring in what I love to work in and see where the children go with this ball of clay that is given. And like I said, sometimes it looks like just we don't know. But the whole story that they have shared, or how it has transformed from one thing to, you know, it became a mountain, and then it became a dog, and then it became this, and then it became that. And it's all in that moment of exploration in that clay and that journey and that empowerment of them sort of putting something that they are imagining into a medium. And I love that. And you spoke about the teachers that they are. Oh my goodness, I am humbled by how much they teach me and keep me present in the moment and bring me back to why I love the medium that I work in, when I can bring it down and then share it with them. So this is why I'm passionate about it. They know from me that it's getting my hands dirty is one of my favorite parts of working in this medium. And there are little ones that don't like getting their hands dirty. And, you know, COVID has not helped, unfortunately. And so part of my job is getting their hands dirty in a medium and then seeing where their imagination takes them. And then and I have some little ones that have such incredible imaginations and visions. And so having them, hopefully, you know, being able, as they get older, being able to draw those visions out, and then me assisting them, I'm their assistant, and scaffolding them to realize their vision. And that, you know, I guess as a teacher, I hope that I am helping build their confidence in their vocabulary in the arts, and that they will continue holding on to that creative problem solving and that creative vision throughout the rest of their life, because it can get squashed pretty quickly in elementary school and high school if they don't stand strong in that important voice that they have as an individual and as an artist, whatever direction they go. Art is so important, especially to these little ones in the development of other skills. So that scribble on the paper is so important for their language development and writing, right? And so if that part of them is squelched and they're just, oh, this is just a scribble. No. They're developing, they're connecting all the threads of knowledge and ways of learning. They are starting that process. And so I hope as a teacher, I'm able to help them with that process. So
yeah, I love that philosophy that you're there to assist them to find, to create what their vision is. Because I think that's so important. That changes everything. It changes from being the teacher that instructs to show you how to do it to somebody that's assisting them to find the way to show their voice or their vision. It's a totally change in philosophy. And then the other thing that really, because I'm more the kind that gets crushed by criticism, and that's probably fine. I wasn't a great drawer, so I probably got crushed early on. But my wife is more, I think she's a little bit more stubborn. And so when she was at RimCAD in art school, somebody told her she shouldn't be in school, like she shouldn't be in art, like she had no business doing what she's doing. And then she ended up, becoming a graphic designer and is very, successful at it and loves it. And she saw it as a challenge. Like, you can't tell me what I want to be or what I can, where I would have been like, oh, well, I better find out what I'm good at and do that instead. So I'm interested in the way the mind interprets that even when you're young, like, why is one kid crushed and the other one is like bullied enough to say, you know what, the heck with you, I'm going to do this anyway, in spite of you.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
And I don't know.
Yeah. You're a testament to the fact that you may come with challenges to this kind of stuff, or, in life in general, but you find ways to succeed. Even if it's a meandering journey, you find places to succeed where other people, if we could just like tap into that, society would be so much better, because so many people are defeated by things. And if it's not like laid out for them, they can't find their way around it, where, you'd be successful in anything because you're going to find a way to be good at it, despite, any challenges you may have. I think that's just innate in you. Don't you think?
I think so. And then also being able to have the courage to reach out and say, hey, I can't do this part. Will you help me? And then having those people come into my life that help me realize my vision. And it's so important as a sculptor to have that skill. But I have had that throughout my life too, of just those incredible people. And sometimes where I didn't expect it, come into my life and go, okay, I got you. Okay, come on, let's go. And to give me maybe that kick in the butt, which is probably often what I need. I approach life. I think when I was younger, I was a little bit like stubborn and a little set in my ways. I became a little more meek for a long time, not really trusting my voice and what I had to say or share. And so, that's still a sort of a process of, I think I constantly am working. I mean, that's my life practice of just trying to keep moving forward and reach out when, I've got this big vision. I don't even know where to start. Okay, let's, take those building blocks and those, one step forward and try and figure out how I can get that vision realized. And like I said, that's sort of, I guess, that in my life is why I want to be that for the students I teach, is to sort of help them, because I also know that place of being overwhelmed and stuck and tearful and going, I just can't make this work. And I've got this vision and I want to make it happen. I don't know how to get there. Help,
So can anybody be an artist? Can anybody be creative?
I know this is debatable. I think so, but they're like any other professions. I think there's those that will shine in it and get the recognition and carry it through to a particular level, right? So no, not everybody can be at that level, but I feel everyone can get in touch with their creative voice, their individual creative voice in whatever medium that is. And maybe it is your skill in math. Maybe it is your skill in writing. Maybe it is music. Maybe it isn't, whatever medium that is. I think that that artist part is sort of that passion behind what you do. So I think that, the debate is, as a painter, sculptor, whatever, or what we figure as fine art, there is a certain level that maybe not everybody will achieve that. As I am not going to be a rocket scientist. I don't have that skill set as an engineer, but there is an art form when you truly plug into what you are fully passionate about and have an expertise in that field, which, okay, again, it can be debated, but I think that is part of what is art and a creative thinker, to be able to allow that, to follow that which we're passionate about in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can argue with me.
No. I believe you.
I think you're right on the money. And our friend Bob Ragland would always, talk about this. And one of the definitions of being an artist is a person skilled at a particular task or occupation. So what you might think or have in your mind of what an artist is, artist could be anything. It's just a person that is skilled at a particular thing. That's an artist. And at the very essence, and you said this already, artists are problem solvers, right? We figure out problems, and that carries over into a multitude of occupations and crafts, skills.
Yep. Oh, and Bob Ragland. Oh, he's one of my mentors. So
Really?
I love that you guys friends with Bob Ragland, and he's deeply missed in the Denver arts community, and not seen him at the National West, the Coors Western Art Show. So I met him way back. So I was studying in Boston and then moved back to Denver. And early on, when I was just trying to figure out where in the arts I was going to find a job, I signed up for Art Reach, and he was teaching at one of the schools in Globeville. And so I was his assistant. So I got one of a very special, not often, but got several of his amazing in the mail, hand decorated envelopes. I have those in storage right now, and always encouraging, always kicking my butt too. And he would be giving me, I know up above, he's looking down at me going, what have you done with that article? Did you send it out to all your collectors? Did you do this? Did you do that? Have you done this? I'm like, I know, Bob. So I had to be getting a scolding right now from Bob, I know, but so.
But he did his job, because that sticks with you. Forever. And that's so cool that you have that connection with him. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, Bob. Yeah.
One of the inspirations for this podcast, and we talk about him all the time. So trying to keep his legacy alive, because he touched so many people in so many different ways. And just one of those spectacular human beings. And he's greatly missed.
Well, and this is what I have found in my life. So like this connection, these threads of connection that connect us together, I feel my life is full of them. And I am so grateful for that. I mean, that's what has guided me in my creative journey, is because of, so like meeting you guys and that connection with Bob, and that Bob sort of inspired this podcast. And that's really valuable to me in this lifetime, is those connections we make, right?
Yeah.
Along that journey that's all over the board. But it also gives me hope and makes me realize that I'm on the right path when people come into my life that, that we can resonate on a certain level because of, whatever it is in the conversation, or it's a Bob Ragland. Right. So.
Yeah.
So when you go out and about, do you always have business cards on you?
Yes, I try. And then there's that, Bob, sorry. No, I've come down to one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, I can't tell you, anybody that's ever had a connection with him, the business card thing comes up. And if you've spent time with Bob, you knew how he felt about, having some kind of either business card or a postcard or some kind of something with your information and your art to leave behind. And
Yep.
So when I meet somebody that had a connection with Bob, I always got to ask that.
That's awesome.
I was at an exhibition with another artist that was friends with Bob, and we were having a conversation, and somebody else that we were interacting with asked if this particular artist had a business card on him, and he didn't. And we just had a conversation about Bob, and he turned at me, and we just burst out laughing because we were both on that same plane. Like, yep.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we are listening. I swear, Bob. Sorry.
Tenant wants to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's N-U-E. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine, and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. And I want to share with you something very exciting. Check out the newly launched New Denver Gallery Guide. Look for the signage that says New Denver Gallery Guide that has a QR code. Scan it with your phone, and you have instant access to a comprehensive digital guide to Denver's finest galleries and exhibitions. Find this QR code in your favorite gallery, hotel, or coffee shop as you visit and explore Denver. Thanks for listening.
I'm Amy Laugesen, and you're listening to the Tenant Podcast.
So going back to your youth, I mean, obviously you were involved in a variety of ways with art. You were drawing from a young age. Your dad was very integral into your exploration and exploring materials and that sort of thing. Were you doing ceramics in your teens or in your youth? How did that all come about?
So, okay, some air dry clay, some ceramics in school. Yeah, but not a deep dive until I got to college. And it was at the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston that, fortunately, we did not have to choose our field of study or area of study, like several fine art colleges where you have to choose a major. Whether it's the painting department or sculpture department, you have to choose a major. And fortunately, the museum school did not, because they would not have been able to keep me in one classroom because I was bouncing all over the school. So I was part of the figurative modeling department, up in painting department where I learned some traditional painting styles, and then down in the ceramics area. And so also, we were working in the modeling department, we were working with air dry clay instead of an oil-based clay, and then doing mold making off of that. And so
I want to stop you real quick. Oh, is it all right to stop you and ask to clarify?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So talk about air drying clay as opposed to oil-based clay. What's other than, so just briefly.
So an air dry clay typically used for ceramics is you will need to in order to finish the solidifying process of that clay in order to make whatever the hand-built sculpture or throwing on a wheel or whatever. You have to put it in an oven, a kiln, right? So that's a ceramic water-based clay, so that it dries. It is then fired as in the medium of ceramics. Oil-based clay has petroleum base to it that it never dries. And so bronze sculptors, people who are doing monumental sculptures, will use an oil-based clay where it's not the end result. So ceramics, what I hold on, what I sculpt in, it's the end medium from start to finish. Oil-based clay, it's been around forever. Sculptors have used it, whatever the oil medium was from, way back, to be so that it doesn't dry on them. So they don't have to manage their clay. Even though there were some sculptors way back that still use water-based clay, but they really had to manage it, else it would end up on the floor, or crack or shrink. Oil-based clay does not shrink. And so, yes, so it's not the end product. You're not going to see an oil-based piece, in a gallery. It will right. A mold will be made of it, and then it will be cast into another medium, whether it's resin, whether it's right.
So it's just a process part as opposed to the end product.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And you were saying when you were in the modeling department.
So we were using, even though, oil-based clay was around, we were using water-based clay. And so I love that feeling of that earth medium. And then just started to create pieces. And I think having worked, done some bronze pieces and having worked with these other pieces that needed to be cast in another material, there's an element, I love creating one-of-a-kind pieces. So having it most connected to my hands, I felt like sometimes something is lost in the translation or in the evolvement of the piece from, or the journey of it from one medium to a next. There is some of the handprint, the various elements that get lost in that process, if that makes sense. So, it was, and again, in school, I was exploring a lot of mediums, but I started to create these clay pieces because it was most directed to my hand and one-of-a-kind pieces. And so, and where I move forward in that, but I still consider myself a mixed media sculptor, not a traditional ceramic artist. So I like to make that distinction because there is such talented, gifted ceramic artists, and that they know it fully. They know it. That is it. That is the only medium, their expertise. And I like to incorporate it as one of the mediums that I use. But it has been my focus lately. And then I have created some larger monumental pieces, and I also like that I was using ceramic pieces so as my maquette, so I could make smaller pieces. There's sort of a similarity, very different, but similarities to scaling it up to look like concrete, right? So creating a model, a small version of the piece in ceramic, and then being able to scale it up to something larger in concrete. There seemed to be a better relationship and connection to those two. I think, did I answer with that?
Yes. Oh my God, that was a great answer.
Okay.
It was. I even kind of understand it now. So that was a great answer.
And it can get very involved and very, just in the process. And that's where, like I said, I geek out, and I love to go through art shows and really look at the medium and how an artist will work their mediums. Dan Chen in the Coors Western Art Show right now, oh my God, featured artist, and his combination of materials, oh my goodness, with the glass and the bronze and the etching and the plexi and and realizing all the mediums that he's working in. I love that.
He's got a piece with the crows,
yes.
like, oh my God. Oh my God.
That one and the bison, I think, are all of them, but those two, love them. And then that parchment paper that he's drawn on, and then anyway.
I know. The drawing alone is great. Like I could just take that and be happy. But then the crows on top of the piece where the parchment is stretched they're just amazing looking. I took a photo of them with my iPhone, and I like looking at them, and it's just really cool. Yeah, he's an amazing artist too. So do you incorporate mixed media in that sense, or is it different? How is your mixed media different than what he was doing?
So right now, that's been different sort of over the years, but right now, my mixed media will all have the horse ceramic, and then we'll integrate, whether it's in the base, or sometimes I will find artifacts, or not artifacts, but pieces, antiques, salvage from steel yards. Find random rusty cool things around, whether it's in a steel yard or in a dug up, digging it up in the dirt or something like that. Or online, I will look for antiques that then are mixed media. So you might have some steel that was once used for the railroads, or I found there was we used to live in Englewood, Colorado, and there was 2 foundries. They're ironwork foundries that no longer exist. They've been demoed. There was General Ironworks and then Electron Foundry, and there were wood patterns they used for pressing into sand to make molds to cast iron. And these wood patterns were works of art. They had a purpose. They were the pattern to make a certain machine part, but the woodworker, to create them, had to create a variance in terms of the shrinking of the iron, and then and then it had to be exact.
You're talking about this public art piece called Horizon, correct?
Yeah, so this is part of where there's the integration of sort of found object, repurposing an object and incorporating it into my work, which what I love is that whatever that object is that I'm incorporating has its own story. And then it is also in connection with the piece I've created as creating a whole nother story. So I love that combination of materials. So sometimes I'll make brand new pieces. The horse is always a new piece. Sometimes I'll make a new base. Sometimes I'll, but there are sometimes pieces that are brought into a piece that also has its own history. It's rusted. It's got old paint on it. And I love that. I love that combination of materials. And so the piece, Horizon, in Englewood City Center, was commissioned part of a group show called New Urbanism by the Museum of Outdoor Arts. And they commissioned a group of artists to create temporary pieces for certain sites around Englewood that responded to new urbanism, which is what the design of Englewood City Center was based on, and Lowry Air Force Base. The development there is based on that concept of new urbanism, where you live, work, and play in one place. And it was sort of repurposing an already established site, so utilizing some of the old buildings into new architecture. The Englewood City Center, that was the old Cinderella City way back when, for us natives that grew up in this area. And then Lowry was the old Air Force Base. So creating homes and apartments, and then an area where government offices could be, or the light rail coming through. And so Horizon was part of that, and then was purchased by the Museum of Outdoor Arts and became a permanent piece for Englewood City Center. And it really responding to the history of that site. It also, the horse is a very important part of that landscape. It used to be from people would have homes in the country, which was Greenwood Village, right? And and Inglewood, which just doesn't feel like it was that far away, but they would have, that would be their country home. They're getting out of the city of Denver. They would go vacation in their homes, and there was a fairgrounds and everything in the site. And so responding to that, and these pieces are concrete and steel. And so it's the locomotion. It's where the horse was the primary means of transportation, and then it through time going to the train, the automobile, and forward on. So the center. So several of the pieces are concrete castings in sand from wooden pattern impressions. So like a wooden pattern would be used to be pressed in the sand for iron casting, I did that, but then cast concrete into those recesses instead. And that became part of the piece. And then you have an old wheel, then you have old gears. And so that make up, so the horse is part of that.
That's an amazing piece.
Well,
I'm sorry. Part of that what?
Yeah, just so the horse being as my subject, integrating that horse and the symbolism of the horse, but then also integrating these other wheel parts, which is, gives a sense of locomotion. This piece is moving along, and the rise of the horses' heads and the drop of their backs mimics or is sort of the line of the mountainscape behind the Inglewood City Center building.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Obviously from this picture, I didn't make that connection, but that's incredible.
So just trying to take those lines, very abstracted. And so you wouldn't get it, but that is where those lines also came from.
I love that. It's amazing. The horses give it, the structure and everything, but the wheels do give it a sense of movement. And I wouldn't have, thinking about that, but it does. And then obviously the position of the body definitely shows a horse in full gallop or whatever. But, it really gives you a sense of motion through this. I love this piece. This is amazing. And it's all concrete and steel.
Yep. All concrete and steel. And I have over the years, people were wondering where the legs of the horses are. So this is
where are the legs? How come? I mean, other than they're in motion and they're moving so fast that you can't see them.
Exactly.
Where are the legs?
So then my response was like, they're on back order. They'll be installed later, and then they're anyway. But no, I go back to, what I'm inspired by are the ancient artifacts where the extremities are, of course, the first to wear. And of course, we're not relying on the horse for transportation anymore. So their legs have been replaced by the wheels. And so, I go into that more explanation, but.
So here's the side of the creative mind that I love, that I wouldn't have come up with this. And, and I'll do, you're probably thinking about this piece for a long time, but, the circle parts right behind the front shoulder in the rear quarters of the horse in front, and also in the rear quarters of the leading horse, you've embedded, circular metal or what appears to be metal pieces. Explain that, because I wouldn't have done that. It looks like it doesn't really fit there, but yet at the same time, it works visually.
And I think just loving, trying to tie it together with that circular form. And then, there's the style of drawing a horse, where there's that mark making of doing the circular drawings to build the horse's body. So having an object do that in the place of the jowl of the horse, there's a horseshoe. And then there's the front horse, there's circular behind the head that you're explaining. There's also a connecting point there for, so there's a design element, but there's also a structural element. So, gotcha. As part of, you've got the posts that are in the ground, but then that's also a structure point to make sure that this piece stays, looks like it's floating in air, right? without the legs because they're not standing on legs. So how do you try and engineer that and work that and then create a design that doesn't distract from the overall visual of the piece? So, yeah.
And this isn't the same, but this popped in my head. So, Ed Dwight, right?
Yes.
And his sculpture's in the negative space where the negative space is removed and it's all structurally built on just positive space, and people would have to go onto his website and look at his art. It structurally, that's an amazing feat to do because, he's missing pieces of the structure, but it looks like it's complete. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And playing with that, right? I like playing with that as a sculptor. Yeah.
I love that thought idea, that the human brain, just like when you're missing words in a sentence, right? Visually, the visual vocabulary that you're working in, it infers it, right? So your brain kind of fills in the blanks, what's missing there. And it very much has the illusion of not only the movement, but then your brain fills in the blanks and you don't miss the legs at all. You just get the sense of what's happening in the line and the shape. And it's brilliant. I love this piece.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and I hope throughout this podcast, people fill in my missing words because that's sort of.
No, you've been great. You've been
awesome. Oh my God. You're doing phenomenal. No, this is great.
I think I might step down and just let you take over. You can do it with Wes.
No. We're a team. We got to do it. We're a team.
How different is it to, make these smaller pieces that you do that have some of the same elements to taking it to the scale? And was this your first public art piece, or where does this fall in the history of your work?
It is one of my first public art pieces. So yeah, I was studying it. I worked with some public artists in Boston. So professors, Megs Harries and her husband, Laish Hader, renowned public artists, and Ralph Helmick. So both of the professors and I had the amazing opportunity to work with them in their studios and help finish pieces. So I think in my journey in school and then beyond, public art has been part of excited me, a direction I wanted to go. And so this was my first piece really realized. So an honor that Cynthia Mann-Leitner took a risk on me and gave me this opportunity. And then that it was designed as a temporary piece, which is, so to think about that, something this size, this heavy, and then having to figure out how it would then come apart and have to move to. So this exhibit also traveled from Inglewood City Center to Lowry. And so I had to make sure that this piece could then move over there. The fortunate thing that happened is that this was created as such a site-specific piece that they wanted it to stay. And then I was given a stipend to create a sister piece to this, which is at Lowry right now and off of 6th Avenue called Dawn. And so there's another piece that's a sister piece. Yep. And then that's the sketch for that you're showing, the Dawn, and then that one has become a permanent piece to Lowry. So it still exists there.
So did you create the concept sketch? Or
yes.
You did.
Yep.
So that's your drawing as well?
Yep.
Holy smokes. That's way too many skills for one person.
Thank you.
It's amazing. That's an amazing piece too. I love that. I love this sketch, by the way. Holy smokes. I'd love to have that framed and just hanging in my living room.
I know. That in itself is a work of art.
Right. It is.
Well, trying to figure out the structure, right? How you would engineer it, how you would design it. And then included in there are some of the inspiration, the pieces of mythology, that history of the horse and various elements that are incorporated into the piece. So for Dawn, it was the Air Force Academy. And then you have the piece that has the one piece of steel coming off the side that is flying, if you will, west. connected to the Air Force Academy that was there. So there's 2 horses running east, and that area used to also have a lot of farmland horses in that area before the development of that into probably something before, but then into the Air Force Base. And so wanting to incorporate, what was there and then moving forward. So again, sort of an artifact, a relic of time in a place that sometimes we forget what was there before with all the development that happens. So, and then Todd, you were talking about from scaling it up. So then creating a maquette and then going through, okay, now you've got to increase this by using those math skills, increase this piece by a percentage, scaling it up, making sure it's now in the public and making sure it's safe and engineered correctly. I now, instead of a gallery piece that I can move, in my pickup truck, in a box and deliver it to like the Coors Western Art Show and it's placed on a pedestal, you are then having to recruit or buy the services of a crane to install these pieces. So you are also then working with experts to help. I trust in the fabrication of some of the framework, the armature in this, the structural, to make sure that it is not going to fall apart or injure anybody. I have some welding skills, but I don't have it of that level. And so trusting individuals to work with me to realize my vision and make sure that these pieces can then be, scaled up and fabricated, created, and then installed in site. So, yeah, hiring those individuals to help me. And I have amazing people that have come into my life to help me realize these pieces. So, and then go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say one of those instances that you were talking about earlier where, you have to depend on other people to help create and bring your vision to fruition, right?
Yeah. And one of the so going back to the piece in Inglewood City Center, Horizon, so also part is figuring out where am I going to build this? Because it's not going to fit in my garage. So then having to find a space to construct these pieces, these concrete pieces. And I was able to go over to General Iron Works when it was still there and rent a space, really inexpensive, huge warehouse. And I created this little plastic room that I could heat because this was created then in the winter. So I had to heat this space in order for the concrete to cure correctly. And then the people I met, this is sort of the magic of an art piece sometimes when it starts to connect and flow together, is that right next door was a crane company, and I went over there and explained. I didn't have a huge budget for this installation, and I went over there and just was researching sort of the cost and explaining the process. And I had a crane operator say, my dad worked for General Iron Works, and told me the story of it. And then he goes, we'll donate. We'll bring it over to Inglewood City Center for you. So it's right in the neighborhood, but for them to offer it, because all of a sudden they were invested in the story of this piece, because, this crane operator's father worked for General Iron Works and he got it. And so this piece really became about those connections in that community, with the industry and the horses and everything. And so people showing up to help get a job done, pretty powerful. And the magic of the piece.
That's Absolutely amazing. Yeah.
So you see yourself as a storyteller?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah. Oh, and on a side note, I have a great photo. Somebody was on site, took a great photo of one of the horses lifted in the air against the blue sky, as it was by the crane being lifted into place to be set on those posts. And it's a pretty amazing image to have it floating in the sky.
And then it became Pegasus.
Ta-da!
That's amazing. It's wonderful when you hear stories where people that aren't necessarily artists, but they collaborate with you to make a piece show up in a specific place, and that they get it and that they're willing to give their time. Like, we're going to do this for free because we recognize the importance of telling the story or that connection with his father. I love that. That's a great story. I got one question about the structure of the horse, the concrete horses. Is there a framework inside that's built kind of like with rebar?
Yes. So it's the framework inside is like ribbing.
Okay.
Sort of like rebar, but actually there's a combination of different steel tubing, and then plates of steel. There's even some of them have plates of steel that are then cut out in the rib shape. So you have to visualize the piece from the inside out.
The skeletal pieces of it, just like you would. Yeah.
And then to be able to then visualize, okay, so you're going to do that layer, and then you're going to do a layer of expanded steel mesh, which is, if you have seen a stucco wall go up, it's that material that they will stucco over to give it structure, right? Concrete's not that strong. It's heavy, but it needs some sort of, whether it's rebar or something in it, it needs that for structure. And so I am building up these pieces and then putting a skin level of the expanded steel lath and bending it and wiring it over this framework to then give you the contour of the horse in that form. And then the stucco is like frosting a cake. So it's really a fairly thin veneer over these armatures. And another wonderful story when I was creating these pieces is that I was trying to, when I was in school, amazing professors again, and I had learned a recipe. It's called cement fondue, and it's acrylic, medium, and concrete mixed together. So it's super sticky, but that you could trowel it on and then you could burnish it, and you could, a really wonderful sculpting medium. So I was looking for the ingredients. That was in Boston. When I moved to Denver, I was looking for those ingredients, and I went to Procoat Systems off of I-70, and I got to talking, I come in as an artist and say, I'm not going to use your product the way you typically use it. Here's what I'm doing. Follow me. And I am looking, I need these ingredients because I'm using it to sculpt. And I had Terry, and I'm going to draw a blank of Terry's last name. He was awesome because he came from a background of architectural restoration. And so he really got, I was showing him my maquette, my drawing, and everything else. And he really got it. And he said, okay. And so he worked with me to try and figure out what product would be similar to work with, because I just didn't have the same sort of stuff available here. Now it's a little bit more readily available, but it was way back. And so he found this product, and it was great. And it already had the elastomeric, the acrylic medium in it. And so I wasn't going to have a different makeup with each mixing, right? It was a consistent recipe throughout the whole construction, which was good, which saved time and made sure there wasn't anything that would cause problems in the future. And I worked with him for a couple of years and they would always love sort of going, okay, this made our day because you're an artist coming in using the same products that we know and use, but this is much more fun than a facade of a building or just, a driveway or something like that. And some of the wheel parts that I cast in concrete, they had a quick setting concrete that he also recommended so that it could set up really quick. And they use it for road repairs and stuff so you could drive a forklift on it in no time, so you don't delay business practice, right? Mm-hmm. So it was great. He was working with me to try and figure out what materials might work to make it easier for me to do these, because, not that many people had done this type of work. And so I'm really trying to go, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to problem solve this? This is my vision. I'm going to make it happen. So again, people that come into my life to buy into the craziness that I'm coming up with and come along in the journey, so.
That's exciting, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And lots of gratitude to everybody that are willing to do that. So it's humbling, as an artist. It's a great gift and humbling. But I think sometimes my work is about that, when, people come together to get something done, and you use everybody's skill set to make something happen. And I worked with young people, and it was through a program through the Museum of Outdoor Arts called Design and Build. And we would go in, so designed after the public art call for artists for public art sites around, every state has it, country has it probably, but in City and County of Denver has it, where a percent goes to public art of construction. And so it was designed after that, and we would work with high school students. So the Museum of Outdoor Arts would have a stipend, and they would have a competition. And so we would present the sites available to the school groups, and within their school, they would put together assembled teams. These teachers were unbelievable, because this was above and beyond what they're normally teaching. And then, so they would create a maquette, they would have to do a write-up, a proposal, and then they would have to give a presentation to a jury. And then pieces where it would be selected, and then those students would be given the stipend to create it and install it on site. And they would be up for a short amount of time. And it was amazing to be part of the facilitator on that project, the facilitator to help them again realize their vision, but what it was also teaching these students. And some of these students went into the arts, but some of them didn't. But to be able to work as a team, to figure out the skill sets of each student, and to get this job done, and then to see it up and honored on site. What a celebration. And we had students come back that said, oh my goodness, boy, that experience was so rich, because it helped me in college and then as an adult in my professional career to have the confidence to be able to propose an idea to some, whether it's if they go into architecture, or if they go into public art, or if they just are, whatever profession they choose, they're presenting an idea to a committee. And what a great skill set to have to be able to do that. And as young people, what a valuable piece of, experience in your education.
Most definitely. Because this is made of concrete, and concrete typically over time falls apart. And you talked briefly early on in the podcast about your paper sculptures. Mm-hmm. So you got to be kind of somewhat okay with it slowly falling apart, or do you plan on, or is this got a lifespan of 100 years, or do you know?
I don't know for sure, but it's done really well. And yes, there is sort of the nature of this piece will start to wear and tear. Now there is a maintenance plan with this piece. And so there's coatings. I have also come in to do some repairs, or to guide whoever's responsible for the conservation of my work. I work with them to make sure they have the information they need to restore it the way I intended. I also have a background, and actually was a career I considered, being a sculpture conservator. I, in college, actually worked for had an internship in the conservation lab at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And one of my professions over the summer was cleaning and maintaining sculptures in Boston. And so working under a conservator, and I was fascinated. I loved that process. It was sort of the science of mediums and how they weather and restoration. And I think it was an important skill set for me to also have, knowing that I can repair my work. That there's sort of a letting go that, okay, it may not be permanent, but I can also do what I can to restore it,
right,
if I need to. And so it was a great, and again, that science of materials that I love, right? And putting them together. And so really important for artists to have that understanding when they're especially putting them in a gallery or putting them into a public space, and being able to make sure it has, pretty long life. And I have that, there's also that, there's something interesting too, because I also love the pieces that are most weathered and worn and broken. And so I have that knowing how to restore them, and then also loving the patinas when they are most weathered and worn, and broken. So sort of bringing that together in my own pieces, and that maybe time actually adds another patina and beauty to the piece.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering if you were kind of getting at too, because like you said earlier, you just become fine with the fact that that paper is going to fall away, but you still have the structure underneath that becomes something different. And I kind of was envisioning that because of, you go out to your driveway, that concrete, even though it's been driven up by a car, concrete just falls apart. And if it wasn't for the structure underneath, it would completely just crumble. So, and then boy, those conservators, amazing work, right? Because I've seen some really botched jobs in the news.
Yes. Oh, and you don't want to be that one that, it's survived thousands, 100, whatever years, and then you're the conservator that completely destroys it or drops it.
Yeah, right. Or I think of the paintings that
Yes,
it's like, what were you thinking? Like, yes. Did you get done and say, God, what a great job. Amazing job. Yes. Or did you run away? Because it's just like, oh my God, well, how did you even come close to botching this that bad?
I know, it's like, that makes me cringe.
I know.
I'm like, oh geez, oh man.
Well, I love those pieces. These pieces are amazing. I really do love them, Amy. They're crazy, beautiful.
Well, and then, there's that component as I age of an artist and embracing my gray hairs and those parts that are starting to weather and crack and whatever.
I think I need a conservator to come in and fix me.
Me too.
Bring me back to my younger luster.
Yeah. Me too. I haven't done many. There's also some large-scale pieces up at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado Springs that are not horses. So there's a grizzly bear, there's hyena pack, and some bear cub. Those are fun to be commissioned to create. And then, as you brought up, there's also the train bench that was at an elementary school, and then a chalkboard piece, the collaborative piece. So I also love the opportunity to collaborate with other artists. So pieces were about that. So this was the chalkboard at the school where I teach, Lynn's Garden, was about the different landscapes in Colorado, and working with Anne Cunningham, who's an amazing stone sculptor and tactile artist. Her background being and focus of her sculptures is so therefore the blind, visually impaired community to experience sculptural works. And so she's a huge advocate and also educator in trying to make, just within her own work, but then also in museums and putting out books and various things that are for the blind community. So making sure that they have access to experience different works of art. So,
that's amazing.
So really wonderful to work with her on this piece for children. So, and then a train bench that was, the team was made up of students from the elementary school and this bench was in memory of Vern Anderson, who was a volunteer for the school for a long, long time. And he was a former train conductor. I can't remember if it was one of the railroad systems. And when he retired, he would volunteer at the school and then taught history or helped the teacher teach history through creating a simulated, basically setting up chairs in this classroom and say, okay, and he was the train conductor, get on board, and then having a projection of sites in Colorado and learning history. And so they wanted to create a bench in memory of him. And so I had this team of students. I did not have the honor to meet Vern Anderson, but these students, and they shared their memories of him. And then the group, and with Michael Cousins, who helped with the welding and fabrication, we designed this train bench that on the sides had words describing Mr. Vern. He loved toy tops, so the smokestack had to be the children's favorite top, the Whistler. And he lived to the age of 90. And so this is engine number 90 for Vern. So anyway, that was fun to do too, to have the children's vision be an important part of the design. And so we just made it happen. Brought the pieces. So
that's fun.
Yeah, that's really neat. I love the thought behind this piece and how it serves as a memorial to this man. So these pieces that we're talking about, all public art, some are probably more accessible.
Right.
Yeah. More accessible than others, but it being the public, and I've seen up close and personal many pieces of public art that get, in addition to, the weathering that we've already talked about, but also what people do, because people do dumb things sometimes. Have you had any kind of that experience with any of these pieces that you had to repair because somebody did something to them?
It was Horizon had that. So that piece I had to, and there was a replacement of one of the concrete wheel castings that from people interacting with it, there was the tail, somebody probably pushing down on one of the tails, cracked it. And then so having to replace one of this back horse tail cracked out. So having to go in and reinforce that and then do a repair and restoration on that. And then one of the wheels, which you can't see behind the center big wheel of this piece, actually spun. It was concrete and it just wore. And I think people maybe knocking it or children standing on it just wore it over time. I mean, this was designed to be a temporary piece. And so the fact that it was installed in 2001, it's now 2013. So I'm pretty happy. It will keep going. It's doing amazing. But also, pretty happy with how they've been pretty minor repairs in the scheme of things. Now, I did do some restoration when I first, again, moving back to Denver and trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was the sculpture maintenance technician for the Museum of Outdoor Arts. I also did some cleaning and maintenance for sculptures through the Denver Art Museum, and a couple pieces out in the public, the dancers out by the DCPA, the theater complex. And I had to clean up some awful things.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I have seen some awful defacement and various other things that have happened around some of Denver's public art collection. So,
yeah, I was wondering about that. People, if you give them the opportunity, and it is, in the public domain, somebody will be doing something stupid at some point, it seems like,
or tagged or something like that.
Yeah, tagged. That's probably what happens a lot of times.
A lot. Yeah. Unfortunately, so.
As you were in the process of getting your BFA, I read that you had this final project that you had to do, that you had submitted and create, and talk about that a little bit and how that became almost a performance piece.
Oh, this is a funny piece. So yeah, it was one of my graduating. We had to, instead of grades, they would get the faculty, you would have to give a presentation to a committee of 2 faculty members and a student, to give you credit to then either advance or graduate. In this case, it was graduating. The horse was an important part of this, and I had created this shell of a horse in plaster, and it was over a steel framework. And we talked early about that flax fiber that if you overbeat in a Hollander beater, it breaks it. It cuts the fibers so fine that it becomes like hide. And I decided, okay, for my final piece, because I had been playing with this paper and steel armature and mixed media, and this torso, it was just the torso. So again, here's my relic, my artifact where the extremities of the horses are gone. And I think for me, that stage, I left my horse in Denver. These relic horses were memories for me. So no longer being with horses. And so trying to hold on to the physical memory of my horse, right? So this was Ticky's torso, which again, the head, legs, tail, just the torso. And so I decided, okay, for my final project, I am going to put this flax fiber, these sheets of fiber all over the torso. So, but you had to reserve the beater because there's many students that wanted to use it, and you were beating it for 7 hours, so you had to reserve it. So I got on the schedule, beat this fiber, put it aside so then I could construct this whole piece, and then put the sheets of, the plan was put the sheets on right before my review board. So it would be drying while, the review board was looking over all my works in the show. And so I had to time this, but in the interim, because I had done this fiber so far in advance, and this fiber naturally smells like a barnyard. It just does, just in raw form. And so it even became more potent as the days and weeks went on while I was trying to construct this whole other piece. So people started commenting, as this is building up, as I'm constructing, how there's a stench coming from the studio, and then and it's getting worse and worse. And then, so I've created this piece, I've put the sheets of paper over this plaster torso, and I've wrapped it because I wanted it to adhere to this form, and to give sort of an unveiling, if you will, to the review committee. So I had gauze, fabrics, everything. I undid that and was starting to show, we're in the middle of my review board now, and, definitely the room is really stinking. And I think it's going up because it's in the basement, and I think it's going up through the vent system. So it's stinking up the whole school, and especially in this room. So they really had this immersive experience of being sort of like in a barn and a manure pile, I think. And then this piece started, there was the vent system going on too. And so it was drying really quickly. And this flax fiber, these sheets were twisting and torquing and shrinking and around this plaster form as we were going through the review board. So the professors kept looking at it as it's transforming, right? And you can hearing it pop, and you're hearing it move, and you're seeing just the subtlety of something alive in the room. So it was not expected. I did not think of that. And then, and then the stink. I think we had to take a couple breaks from, getting some fresh air. It's like you're right there in a stall with a horse. It was good.
I love that. That is so funny. That's so amazing.
But then that was so subdued and so mild. So when I was going to school, it was all about the shock value. So, that's what artists were doing in New York and Boston, is that, the more sensational, the more shock, the more grotesque, that's the best art of the time, right? So mine was really pretty poo-poo, pretty mild compared to what was going on, but that was my attempt at trying.
So what was the board's response? What did they tell you?
They thought it was fabulous, and it stuck in their memory for a long time. And I still am in contact with one of my professors that was on my review board there, and he brings it up. I think he has shared that story with several students over the years while he was still teaching. And he was my welding instructor, and then he was on my review board. And yeah, just saw him this fall and brought up that story. So
that's a great story. I love that. Again, the full experience. I mean, holy smokes.
Yeah. And then that frame, what was sort of fun is that, well, my aunt and who lived in Cambridge, she just wanted that torch. So the paper, of course, is starting to fall off, and she wanted that steel framework in her garden. And so I'm like, perfect, because I have no idea where I'm going to put this. I don't have a home. I'm not going to bring it back, ship it back to Denver. So where am I going to put this? She goes, I'd love it in my garden. So over time, the birds started, there was fiberglass in the plaster shell. So the birds started picking at it and picking out the fibers and building nests with that. And then eventually the plaster all disintegrated and went back to the earth or wherever. And then the framework remained in her garden for a long time, and vines grew over it. And so
that's an amazing, I love that whole piece. That's amazing, because it became of a life of its own. The fact that the nature adopted it to make nests and, go back to the earth, and then vines grew on. I mean, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, a little crazy journey.
You actually come from a long line of artists, correct?
I do.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And a pretty prominent sculptor, if I understand correctly.
Prominent sculptor. So my great-grandfather was a prominent sculptor in Massachusetts. Was born in Connecticut, but so Connecticut and Massachusetts. Bela Lyon Pratt. And my great-grandmother too, Helen, was one of his students, but an incredible sculptor herself. She really didn't follow her art, raising children and stuff. And so, but Bela Pratt has some really, several pieces, probably now he died at age 49. So in his short career, created, I think, over 180 monumental pieces. And there's the art and science sculptures outside of the Boston Public Library that are his. He's created some coins. He's created gold coins. He's created the Nathan Hale sculpture at Yale, and the Whaleman Monument in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and on and on and on. There's cemetery monuments he created, and then some other pieces. So, and then some really beautiful carved figurative figures. There's one in the Museum of Fine Arts and various things. So, and part of my journey in becoming a sculptor was resonating. So I wish I had been able to meet him, be in his studio. And my grandmother, his daughter, this is maternal grandmother, great-grandfather, she died when I was born, and I wish I had had time and she was doodled and painted and definitely studied art as well. Didn't really have the confidence to put herself out into galleries. And I wish I had had time to, talk to her about her art as well.
So what was his name again?
Bela Lyon Pratt.
Pratt.
P-R-A. Yeah.
Look him up, Wes. He's really, he sounded like a really interesting man. And like you said, he died fairly young, but he did a significant amount of work and a variety of things, right? I mean, like the coins you were saying, half and quarter Eagle Gold U.S. coins, known as Pratt coins.
And they're the only recessed coins in the U.S. minted. So, which means that instead of, the coins we look at, they're raised relief, right? His vision was that you recess them and then do the relief inside that recess so they stack better. And they were controversy at the time, very controversial at the time. And it was a short run. The mint didn't, a pretty short run because of how controversial they were at the time. And now they are considered one of the finest and collectibles because of how unique they are. And there's a funny story. So going back to, my aunt came across all of these letters that were stored in a trunk, and at my grandparents' house in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they were letters, correspondence between Bela and his mother. So instead of talking and picking on the phone, "Hey, Mom," he would write letters about what was going on with his family, with commissions and various things. And so she put her heart and soul in compiling these letters and getting his name out there. He was actually filed as a female sculptor, Bela, with Bela. So she had to correct that with some of the New York archives. So she corrected that and then also got his name out there more, with his peers of the time, of giving him the recognition that he deserved. So part of my journey into going into sculpture, I started thinking I'd go into graphic design illustration, went to California, did not have a great help putting together my portfolio. Denver Public Schools, sorry, weren't very helpful. So felt like I needed to go to a junior college and help to put together that portfolio, and hoping to then go back to the East Coast to study. So I did. I went to a 2-year junior college, Marymount in California, had amazing professors that really helped with, and I was still thinking about going into graphic design illustration. The second year I was at this junior college, change in faculty, and there was a fine artist painter professor that I had, and I realized that, and graphic design illustration was becoming more and more computerized, and I'm so hands-on. And so realized that I don't think that's the direction I want to go, because I'm feeling removed from, if I'm going to have to do all this on computer, I'm going to feel removed from the process. And so started to go in the direction of fine art, and through some of the classes, having an opportunity, it was in a painting class, having going through the still life painting, various exercises, and then giving free rein of whatever we wanted to do. I instantly wanted to change that canvas and give it dimension. I was bored of the flat surface. And it was then that I'm starting to share more about the research she's doing on my great-grandfather, her grandfather. And all of a sudden, we've had sculptures around the house and in Massachusetts, but all of a sudden something clicked, going, oh, wait, I think I'm gravitating towards sculpture. I think that is more my language. It's that, and it's that direction that I started to follow. I was going to, I finished up my 2 years at Marymount and was going to go up to San Francisco to the Art Institute, Art and Design, School of Art and Design, and decided to defer a semester to go help my aunt with the research of my great-grandfather. Thinking, maybe this will go and I'll go back. I never left Boston. And so what it did for me in the research and what she was starting to discover and pull out is that, so he was instrumental in inspiring many students in the modeling department at the School of Museum of Fine Arts. I went to the School of Museum of Fine Arts. So there's a way of feeling like I was studying. Somehow my great-grandfather was there with me. So that connection to that heritage. I also got to, prior to starting at the museum school, I got to work in a studio. So Adio Di Baccari, who is a sculptor, Tavern Road Studio, no longer exists. It was torn down by Northeastern to create a couple more parking spaces. Incredible little. I mean, you went into this building, it felt like you were in Italy or in a whole different country. Really special place. And Audio would sculpt there, and they were doing mold making and casting. So I learned that. And the previous owner before Audio was Frederick Allen. Frederick Allen was a student of my great-grandfather. And Frederick Allen, my great-grandfather encouraged and helped pay for him to study in France. So there was these connections of getting as close to my great-grandfather through these places and sort of through process. That was pretty special. And then to study at the museum school that's where he met Helen, my great-grandmother, and they married. And then my grandmother studied painting at the museum school. And so these wonderful little connections that my aunt definitely helped weave together for me, and realizing, sculpture is my medium.
That's an incredible story. Oh my God. Yeah. I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
And then here's this little fun story there was my little journey,
Don't be sorry.
Okay, coming back. Okay, so one of the stories that my aunt shared through letters is that, Bela Pratt, with the creation of this gold coin, he was taking the trolley to the museum school to teach from Jamaica Plains. And he realized that he did not have his fare for the trolley. So he went, pulled out of his pocket the proofs, these gold proofs of these coins, and asked the conductor, going, "So sorry, I forgot the fare, but I just made these. Will you take one of these?" And I can't remember if the conductor, you just made this coinage. Yeah, whatever, buddy.
Right. That's what I would say.
You're just making money.
Right.
Yeah, right. So I don't know if he did. I can't remember if he did a trade or whatever, but just the funny, the humor of that, going, "Oh, I just made these coins. You accept this?"
I'm just going to drop you off at the Secret Service's office, and we'll see how this all transpires. Yeah. So that's an amazing story. I'm sorry.
Receiving one of those proofs, oh my goodness, that would be worth whatever now.
That's what I was thinking. Like, how amazing would that be if you actually had the foresight to go, well, this is pretty cool. Right. I think I might just keep this, right. And it's out there floating, in somebody's drawer somewhere or whatever, right.
Probably at some pawn shop waiting to be bought.
I know. I'm gonna do
So obviously, because you were in Boston, you've seen some of his artwork in person, right? Do you have a favorite? I'll tell you one that I love while you're thinking.
You tell me.
It's called Grieving Mothers, or Sacrifice and Devotion. It's got a dual name, and it's a grieving. And I don't know if it's from a headstone or a monument in a cemetery, but it is beautiful. I mean, I'm just seeing a picture of it. Obviously, I love that one.
Yeah.
And then there's one where some lady's holding an orb. It's called Jamaican something. Let me find her. Where'd she go?
Yes. And he loved, so on the side, he would, these women that he created in young girls are just stunning. I mean, and just the faces of all of the sculptures he created, there's just a realism without it there, but there's a soul to these sculptures that, and it's definitely of that generation. And I think we have them now in this generation of sculptors, but there's something about that time frame that, and even older, right? That there's just to be able to do the carving of the drapery in marble, and then the humanness of the people that are sculpted. And you can really feel sort of movement in the fabric and the expression, and that's just unbelievable. Anyway, there's that part of me, and as a sculptor's, I do my work, I honor what I do, but there is also those works put me in awe.
it's got to be amazing to have that connection to your great grandfather, that you're doing work that he would, that he did in the same similar style or whatever, but, or not style, but, you're both sculptors, and to see his stuff in person has got to be amazing.
Yeah.
His beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. Go ahead. I was just going to say, if I ever get to Massachusetts, I'm going to definitely, he's on my list of sculptures to see.
And it's really, with the Boston Public Library, there's so many, so I could go through and go, and there's this one, and there's this one. And my family has some, and there's one, it's a boy with a fish that was a fountain piece for the Boston Commons. And so we have that. And that's probably one of my favorites, just because it's the one I grew up with, personally, having within our family. And there's other ones within, there's one piece that is upstream, downstream. And I don't know where this piece is, but there's a female figure that's reaching back, like floating in a stream. And then the very grace and beauty. And then there's this gentle touch of this male figure swimming, going forward, and they're just gently touching in the middle. So they're two separate sculptures, but they gently are touching. And it's incredible. And then there's I could go on and on, because there's the art and science I love, just because of there's a little bit of story too behind it as a public art piece and the selection. So Bela Pratt was the studio assistant and Augustus St. Gaudens was his mentor. And so Bela did a lot of, with all of the artists that worked for St. Gaudens, Bela Pratt did a lot of his drapery and helped with lots of monuments that St. Gaudens created. And St. Gaudens died. He got the commission for the Boston Public Library, but passed away. And so the committee approached Bela Pratt saying, will you complete St. Gaudens' design? And, and it was very grand, two female figures up on these great pedestals, and then a male figure in the middle. So art, science, knowledge is what it represents, but very classical, very up in the air, very grand. And Bela said, I will take on the commission, but I will create my own. So if you want me to do it, I would like to design my own. I will not create his piece. And they went with it. So he created photographs to sort of illustrate what he wanted, and maquettes and various things. And what his vision is to have art and science as women figures sitting down on human level with the public, and then the library itself representing knowledge. And so to have these figures not way up and not reachable, but actually down with you. And then there's this beautiful interchange of, science looking at an orb, and then art looking over with her palette, sort of a conversation between them. That there's a whole conversation with, the library itself of knowledge, and then this conversation also happening between the art and science, which I love. So
that's the piece I'm talking about, the one with the orb. That's an amazing, it's amazing. I do love a good sculpture, and I do love a good cemetery. So
and there's amazing. And then you have, his friend was Daniel Chester French, who did the Lincoln Memorial. So he's hanging out with Frank Benson, so those contemporaries, and hanging out and talking art, and how
heavy hitters, right?
Right, heavy hitters. And so to be able to have, you imagine, just hanging out. I guess it would be like me hanging out with my favorite artist people, hanging out with you guys, talking art. So sad, right?
You're just another heavy hitter, like him and his contemporaries. Yeah. My God, at least you come from talent that is, genuine. It's genetic in you. There's no denying that. Your sculptures are beautiful, totally different. They're you have your own voice, but my God, you come from it honestly. It's just beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. That's You're $5.
Oh,
Incredible. Love you, Wes Brown.
thank you. Yeah.
I love the family connection.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
it's
huge.
beautiful.
It's huge for me, and this has been something that I just haven't quite gotten, but off the ground, and something that keeps being put on the back burner just with life and various various things that I need to do. But I have had a vision. So my grandmother, incredible little illustrations, but they were done on these little tiny index cards, very humble, very, very private. And I think also something that she really didn't want people to see. But these sketches, they were really very obscure, very sort of surreal, sort of these figurative pieces, but all sorts of other things going on. And they're very sculptural. And I have wanted to do this collaboration with my grandmother because she died, I was born and then she died, within that year. So I never had that conversation, that connection with my grandmother, and would love to then have a conversation through our art, bringing it together. And so I'm taking her little drawings and creating sculptures from them, from what I see, and just sort of seeing where that goes. But we'll see if I get to that. I mean, it's been a work in progress for years. I mean, when I was in college, I applied for a commission to see if I could find a particular site and then create one of her drawings and create it as a temporary sculpture in a park. It was actually at Chesterwood. So Daniel Chesterfrench's estate, they have calls out for artists to then have these temporary sculpture exhibits in their grounds. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be cool to have this type of lineage, this type of connection, both to Daniel Chesterfrench and then to my grandmother and then to me, and then on that grounds and trying to, right?
Oh, it sounds like a mission. I feel like we need to make it happen.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
Don't you think, Todd? Not like we have any power, but God dang it.
Right, but all right, 2023.
Who knows? Your grandmother would be so honored if you did that, even if they were private and just personal, just for herself. But I know how I'd feel as a grandfather if my granddaughter did something like that in honor of me. It'd blow me away. Yeah.
And a really fun way an interesting way to really sort of meditate on work and see, create a dialogue around it, even though it's a nonverbal dialogue. It's a sharing of image and then trying to get a sense of who she was based on, the artwork she created, and then trying, where that journey will really lead. But yeah.
That's cool. I love that. That's so cool.
I
want to see it
that
happen. I want to see it happen. How much does a commission like that cost? A temporary commission in a public space? What's the dollar amount usually?
Well, it all depends on scale, medium, yada yada.
Well, I'm just saying, like your special piece for your grandmother, like
so if I was to do one piece,
well, a temporary piece that you wanted to have commissioned by this organization, what would be the dollar amount?
Okay, I've got to think about that.
Oh, really?
But I think, see, because, I think it's more of even a whole traveling exhibition.
Okay.
It's not just like one piece, but that it would be, now, if you narrowed it down, let's just say.
So here's the deal, though. Here's the deal.
To do one piece, but then maybe it could be less.
Hold on. Let me say my piece here. Because once we say this, you're in a special spiritual place. And so am I. And once we put this out there, it'll manifest. Okay. So tell us the ballpark that we need to be in. What do we need to manifest?
Oh, geez.
To make this happen for you? Because I think it can happen. You want to sleep on it?
Yeah. Let me sleep on it. Can I?
All right. To be continued.
And would it be okay? So then I
Yeah.
guess it's also breaking it down to, is it just one piece? So then there would be her drawing and then the one piece. So there's that. And then if there was to be an exhibit, which is a series of pieces, which is more of the dialogue, then it would be a different.
All right. Well, let's before we manifest it out to the universe.
I want to see the whole body, the conversation between you and your grandmother. I think that would be just spectacular. And obviously we haven't seen her work, but I would just,
we don't need to.
Yeah. I don't.
Here's the
exactly.
deal.
Don't need to.
I'm feeling weird. I have this weird feeling going on, like this could really I get this nervousness inside me. So I think there's something here. We want to manifest this for you. We want to make this reality.
Wow. Thank you.
So anyway, I don't mean to put that much pressure, but I feel like once you put it out there, weird stuff happens. And next thing you know, you're having this dialogue with your grandmother.
I agree.
And you made Wes cry on the podcast. So I'm sending you $5, and that's the start of this whole thing.
Okay.
We should look back. Leo made me cry. There's been a series of other ones. We should that should be part of our numbers. How many times Wes cried this year?
Okay.
I love you. I love this. This is awesome. You're making me feel amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
I love the story of your great grandfather. That's an amazing story. I love the connection. Thank you for sharing.
And my aunt, who's no longer with us either, just that lineage with her, those are huge, those ancestors of ours. It's really pretty special, and to honor that, as who we are.
Right. So my connection to my great grandfather's, his cowboy hat is in my dad's room in my house, hanging on the wall and I have some spurs of his. He was a cowboy in Kansas back in the turn of the century. And I now, because my dad lives with us, I have his hat hanging in his bedroom, and I love it.
They're so special. Those pieces are
huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that was amazing. This is why I love this podcast.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't get to meet fabulous people like you.
And me meeting the two of you. So thank you. This, again, these threads, right? These threads that connect us is so important.
And now you're connected to Leith O'Malley in Australia, right?
Yeah.
You got connections in England. You got connections back east, Germany. There's all these interwoven connections. We got people that are listening in Wichita, Kansas, that will like your page because he's my cousin. And he keeps reminding me he's listening he's all of a sudden friends with so-and-so. It's amazing. So
I've got family in Kansas. So hello, Kansas.
Shout out to Jess. Thanks for listening. Love you, buddy. Anyway, oh my God, this is crazy. All right, Todd, where are we moving? We got to move on.
Look at we're 5. Wow.
I'm like, why?
I mentioned at the beginning of the show, obviously, this theme of the Coors Western Art Exhibit and Sale is what we're doing this month, and you've been a part of that for a number of years. When did you first get into the show?
2013. 2013. So, and I was Grant Pound, who at the time was the founder, visionary between Colorado Art Ranch, which was a nomadic residency program. So he would coordinate different sites around Colorado and then create artist residencies, but also scientists. So it was a residency for you to focus on something in particular or a theme. And it was he who recommended me to Rose Frederick. So oh my goodness, so grateful for her, so admire her. Yeah, huge admiration for what she does and what opportunities she creates for us as artists in the show. And so do not take it for granted. It's just, oh my goodness, so grateful to be invited back, all these years. So and she pushes us, she's also pushes us to be better. And then collectively, I think, to honor all the artists and her, making sure that we show up and do our best work that we can, for the show. So, and she's got a great gift as a curator, great gift, writer too. Her art's many faceted, but as a curator, and what a crazy venue to curate a show. And I got to tell you the craziness of, for the opening night, having it expand into the whole floor space of the National Western Complex, and then having to curate it back down to one gallery space is nuts. It's
It
crazy.
is nuts. It really is. It's so much work. It's out of this world.
So crazy. I had a profession. I've collected many professions over my years, and one was curating shows at Denver International Airport for a short amount of time. And I thought that was a crazy venue to display art and curate shows. But no, I think what Rose does is, amazing. And the gift that she has to be able to, have the vision of all of us artists and the work that we have in the show, and then to display it in a way that really leads the audience through the show and makes visual connections, and that is an artwork in and of itself. So.
Yeah, we agree. So you had 7 pieces in this year, is that right? Or did
I did, and so there was the pinion stick horses. So they could have been, if Rose chose, they could have been sold as a grouping of 3 or sold individually. And so being able to sell them individually gave them 3 different homes to be in. So so those pieces have sold. I'm very grateful. So
have all your pieces sold so far, or is there still?
I have had 4 pieces sell. So there's 3 still available and on display in the gallery right now.
Okay.
I love those pinion stick horses, and since we're talking about them, you guys can see my screen, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, this is my favorite pinion stick horse, number 1. Talk a little bit about this piece. I mean, it's stunning.
Well, thank you. And the whimsy of the hobby horse, the stick horse, and they have the stick horse rodeo at the National Western, and so there's a play on that. And then me working with young children, and then probably my first horse. A lot of our first horses, we dream of a real horse, and sort of the hobby horse, the stick horse, is probably our first horse that we can have that imaginative play on, riding around wherever, either a house or a yard or whatever. So
I had one. Yep.
So
I love these too, and this one is really nice. I love this one as well, and I love the whole idea of it. So how did you come up with this idea? Just other than it's a play on something that's already happening.
I think it was that. Okay. I've done other toys, rocking horse theme. I've done horses on wheels. So there's that toy sense. And so this was another play with that stick horse. And the sticks around here, the cedar posts that are line are the T road coming in. There's some historic fence posts here. I think all started coming into play with this. And then I've done some just horse heads. And of course, there's that classical tradition of just the horse head that's displayed, as a sculpture, and whether it has broken off the main body and it's the artifact that is then, by a museum put on display and looks like it's the final piece, but it's actually, a remnant from a larger piece. I like to play on that as well. And so I've done these series of horse heads before, and I like my mounts look like museum mounts. I mean, by design, I like that sense of them feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to mount them this way, but it may have not necessarily been the full purpose of the piece. But anyway, so And I love this glaze. This glaze turned out beautiful. So, and I do a variety of different layering and glazes and etching and various things to create my surface treatment. So again, not a traditional ceramic artist. I like to play with the glaze itself too, as well, So,
so what kind of glaze is this that we're looking at?
This one is, they're commercial glazes that I use, and this one just has it's called Moonscape, but there's some underglazes and some various things, and there's iron, and which creates some of the spots on the surface. Manganese is also included in this, and so there's various ingredients in this glaze that makes it react this way in firing. It's a random patterning. It's a random, which is part of the magic of the piece and the glaze. It's sort of I think with ceramics, part of what we love about it, we can control it to some level, but clay and glazes also have a mind of their own. And so sometimes, even though you can do a series of test tiles with layering and various levels of glazes, it depends what's also in the firing with it, making, various temperature elements to it, that makes each piece unique, one of a kind. You can't replicate it. So you have to let it go. You have to sort of let go and trust in the process. And sometimes they're gems. Sometimes they lead you in a whole different direction. There's happy accidents, and then sometimes, there's disasters and blowups in the kiln.
So what do you do with the disasters and blowups in the kiln? What do you do with those pieces?
Sometimes they're in the garbage. Sometimes, my mom has asked for a couple. Sometimes I've had a really good blow up in the kiln, just when I think I know what I'm doing. Good life lesson. When I try and control it or rush it too much, sort of like working with horses or working with children, you have to let it go. And sometimes I'll save parts of it, and then sometimes I throw them away. But my mom would like to, wants me to save a couple pieces. If there's a horse head, so please save me that horse head. I want it. Okay, Mom, thanks for giving this piece a home.
This piece, this Mystic Blue Mare, is I'm over the moon for this.
This is my favorite piece in this show.
Wes and I tend to have similar tastes, but this is just absolutely out of this world. Can you talk a little bit about this one?
And this one is more in my style of more the spirit horse, the more ethereal horse, the more artifact horse, where some of the extremities are starting to wear weather, definitely having more of a classical connection to in style. And this glaze too, in combination, different recipes coming together. And this was one of those gems that came out, Again, that process for me as an artist is a wonderful, it has taught me a lot, I guess, of being able to control so much, and then also having to just trust and let go and sort of allow a whole nother process that you have no control over. I mean, you can scientifically control certain, the temperature of the kiln and various things, but there's also in that knowing there's so many variables, and to just trust that process has been, again, going back to maybe that spirituality. Here's my spirituality, and being quiet and being in the moment, and again, taking that subject of the horse, having my horse Tic Tac. They're not full representations of him, but other horses sort of come through and just sort of that meditation with the clay. And again, going back to, that's why I love this clay medium, because it's so immediate, so connected to me, and so direct. And then the clay itself, imagine what ingredients are in that clay that has been dug up, and we're using that earth medium. So I think that feeds into my work as well.
So the clay that you use for these pieces, do you buy the clay already mixed, or is this locally found clay or?
I do buy this clay, and it's formulated for sculpture, hand building. But I am really interested, and I think this is a journey I'm going to take on, probably starting this year and into the future, is really learning more about the local clays here. And I know in the Valley, I've heard there's a blue clay or green clay and a yellow clay that, and talking with people who have used this clay and what other ingredients they have added to have successful firings, and what temperature. Is it low fire, mid-range? I'm not sure. And so I think my study this year, and maybe over the course of many years, is working with some local clay.
I love that. Is that just part of this natural evolution of your work, and that's going to be part of the next era, do you think?
I think so, because it's been definitely something I've been thinking about. I've been starting that conversation, trying to research where clay beds are, some local artists. Unfortunately, there's one artist who's passed away several years ago who did a lot of ceramic work with local clays here. And I'm like, just a little too late. Didn't quite get here in time and didn't have a chance to meet her. So hopefully her knowledge has been passed on. Her elder knowledge, right, has been passed on to somebody else. So maybe somebody will share that with me.
Mm-hmm. So I got another question that comes out of this. So talk to a couple artists, and one of the things about like watercolors, and I'm assuming ceramic is the same way, like easy to learn, but a lifetime to master. Is that kind of what you feel ceramic, or is it difficult from the get-go?
I think you're right. I think a lifetime to master. I think and it depends the direction you want to go, right? I'm a hand builder. I don't throw vessels, just not, I tried it, I enjoyed it, but it's just not, again, coming at this as a sculptor.
Yeah.
I really like that. And so I guess I would say it takes a lifetime to master. Yeah.
I love this piece. This is amazing. Yeah, I just gravitated when I look at it, I gravitate to this piece. When I was looking at all 7 of your pieces, I was like, I gravitated to that immediately.
Well, and I also need to acknowledge my husband, Stephen Hume, who I'm grateful and for his patience and his talent as a photographer to really help show these pieces. So, for a website and for, the photography to put out into the world too, when you don't have the physical piece there. So grateful for you photographers, for him, for doing that for me. So,
yeah. Tell him great job.
And he's patient. He's very patient with me.
Oh man. We're going to start to wrap this up as we get on into the 3-hour mark here, but oh my God, I'm
going into the dark. I know. You can't even probably see me anymore. I got to turn on a light because I was surrounded by natural light, but
I feel like we literally talk for another 3 hours. I knew Wes would feel the same way. So we definitely will have you on again. I want to ask though, we've been asking this question. We asked it, I believe, of Jill and of Maeve. How important has the Coors show been in your career as an artist?
Oh, it's been incredible, phenomenal. Really helping me launch my career, and also, for not large scale pieces, but these gallery museum size pieces, making contacts, getting my name out there. It's been huge. I'm so grateful. And then to fall in the category of Western art has been huge. I know the horse naturally does that, but what I'm also grateful for Rose and for the committee, for, all involved in this exhibition, all of her assistant, just everybody involved, and Rose, making the show and all the work to make this happen. What I admire about Rose, and I'm grateful for the Coors Western Art Show, is how Rose and the show keeps redefining what Western art is. And so for my work to sort of fit into that category, I admire that. And the educational components that they bring into this show too, of helping educate young collectors, and then, younger groups, young art groups that come through. And so the education component of the show, and then the sales going to National Western Scholarship Trust. And so this show gives a lot, and it takes care of us as artists. It really honors the work that we do, both in showcasing, but also compensating to help it be sustainable for us, and then getting our work out there. And I love this venue because I think there are many individuals that may not find themselves wandering through a gallery, like downtown Denver or anywhere else. But because they're at the National Western Stock Show, there's a curiosity, and it brings them in, and it engages them in a really powerful way. And I think because of the Western themes, they can resonate with the works in this show. And so what a great opportunity for the public as well. So I think it's a win-win all the way around, and it's giving back in such a beautiful way. And oh my goodness, great honor. And again, something I do not take for granted, being in this show. And I constantly am striving to try and do my best to, and I again, sort of humbled to be an artist amongst all the amazing talent that is in this show. It's just stunning. I mean, I can walk you through if we were in the gallery right now and you asked me which was your favorite, like, okay, I'm going to go show you this piece, and this is why I love that. Oh, wait, but we got to go over here because this, okay. And I love this. Okay. This artist. Oh, I love all this art. Okay. This is a dear friend of mine. Oh my goodness. And this is so there would be lots of storytelling, and I would not choose just one work of art or one artist. So
I love that. I would, and I'm sure Wes would feel the same. I would love to walk through that gallery with you and look at art with you and get your take and what resonates with you. And we did ask, Maeve, when we had her on, what artists, what work did you see out of this year's show that you really gravitated towards and really was jazzed about? Anything that kind of sticks out in your mind? I mean, I know you love it all, because I feel the same way, but anything that, just hits you over the head or smacks you in the face?
Well, and of course, I would go through Maeve and Jill's, oh my goodness, every time. And because I also know them personally, I know Sophie Brown's piece. Oh my goodness. And I know her too, that piece just touches me, all of her work. Dan Chan, I think, is just, as a sculptor, so speaking the language of sculpture and the mediums he uses, as we mentioned earlier, I think him being the featured artist this year, great honor and well-deserved. Yeah. And Stephanie Harshorn has this amazing painting of clouds that I gravitate towards. And yeah, see, here's what I'm saying is this is why, okay, I would be on for another hour saying, no, okay, but there's this, okay, but this artist and this artist, I don't know if there's one piece, and there's some pieces that are much quieter. And that I know the show is gorgeous, and there's so much color and there's vibrancy. It's just buzzing. And there's these really beautiful, subtle pieces that are quiet. And I love those pieces too. And you really have to be in the right mindset to really see the nuances that it has to offer. So yeah.
It's literally, and we mentioned this before with Maeve, it's literally one of those things, just like going to the Denver Art Museum. You can't just see it one time through. You literally have to go back many times, which is why we, started covering the Coors show every year. And initially that was our connection with Rose, is because of Bob. Bob would come to go to the Coors show like 5 or 6 times during the course of January while it was up. And, he was always talking about it. So, and he was right on the money. I mean, that guy was right on the money. Yeah. It's one of the most spectacular things to experience. And if you're listening and you haven't done it, go do it. Like it's a fantastic day out. And
you've got to see these works in person, because they just, yes, photographs are beautiful, but there's, again, these subtle nuances that you miss not standing in front of it. And, I'm proud. I'm a Denver native. So, it's a tradition in January to go to the National Western Stock Show. Oh, my goodness, it wouldn't be January without a trip to the National Western Stock Show. So I'm proud of that, and very proud that this very prestigious show is in my hometown. So, and to be an artist, I would never have envisioned years back when I was attending the National Western that I would be part of the Coors Western Art Show. So, or considered a Western artist. So in that category. So, yeah.
Jill shared with us in a studio visit some information, but I just want to talk in very general terms. But you've been collaborating with these women at Ranchlands, Jill Sokup, Sophie Brown, which you just mentioned, and Stephanie Hartshorn. Talk a little bit about what that collaboration has meant to you and what it has done for you.
Oh, and what's exciting is that it's continuing. So I have had great love and admiration of these women artists and their talent for years. So to be considered to be part of, a collaborative group with them is so inspiring on so many different levels. What it has meant for me. So Zapata Ranch, the land owned by the Nature Conservancy, leased by the Phillips family. There's artist gatherings that they put together and bring artists to this ranch. Well, that's just south of the Great Sand Dunes. So as I am settling here for myself as an artist in the San Luis Valley and trying to make those connections here in the Valley for myself to move and inspire me forward in my work, I'm having these incredible artists come to my neighborhood. And they have been doing this for several years. And so I was new this year. Tess Leach invited me to be part of the artist gathering. The three of us resonating with a place and a site on that ranch. And then wanting to continue meeting, create works around this place. It's really exciting. I don't think you get that often. Sometimes we can be, as artists, pretty solitary in our practice and in our art making. And so to come together, and we have no idea where the journey's going to lead us, but to be able to talk art, to share our knowledge of different materials. And then there's been some magical, this is the mysterious valley we live in. So there has been a synergy that has been a gift. So I think each of us feel an excitement, and it's invigorating. And then to come together and see where it's going to lead and see, who knows if it will be on display or not. But for each of us, it has great significance. So, yeah. But to be here, and I think that has helped me connect more to this place that I now call home.
Beautiful.
Before we leave off, outside of this work that you're starting this year, these conversations with your grandmother, what are you looking forward to in 2023? Do you have any exhibitions coming up beyond the Coors show this year, and anything else that you'd like to promote?
I will be creating. Well, there's the gathering of us artists. So more trips to Zapata Ranch, rich with horse and heritage and all sorts of cool energy there. Couple small commissions, I think, an openness to sort of what unfolds this year. I'm at that place right now, and coming down off of the big push of the Coors Western Art Show. I've needed a little time to regroup, percolate. So we'll sort of see, where things lead. Definitely getting more of my studio set up here. So I'm not having to make as many trips back and forth from Denver, and more connections in the Valley. That's huge. That's probably got number one. We've got to finish this house. So there's these huge, daunting projects that we have that we still have to finalize. And work for my gallery at Anacor Logos Gallery. So we'll create some works for them. And then hoping to hear that I'm invited back for 2024 Coors Western Art Show. And so we'll start that process. And I think that's always in the back of my mind of what will I create for next year if invited back. Yeah. So it's a little, there's things happening. There's just nothing. It's starting to formulate and percolate at the start of this 2023 year. So we'll see.
It's exciting.
Just loading up the truck and waiting to see where this journey, or saddling up the horse to see where we're going to ride. Right.
There you go.
And what we'll find along the way. I don't know.
Beautiful metaphor. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're excited for you this year. We're excited for what's to come. And I can't wait to see your pieces next year in the Coors Western, and and to take this journey with you, because we'll be watching.
Oh, thank you.
And cheering you along. Yeah.
Wow.
It was so fantastic to connect with you. And it was nice to hear some of these connections that we had that we didn't even know. I know Wes feels the same way. We already talked about it, but we'll definitely have you on again. I have probably 20 more questions that I didn't even get a chance to ask you today. So I have plenty to add to our next interview that we have in the future. And it's been just a joy and a pleasure to spend time with you. And it was educational, and I can't wait to talk to you again, Amy.
Thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual. Thank you both. This has been so fun, and thank you for listening, and wonderful questions, and allowing me to share, and filling in my words where they're missing. And anyway, this has been great meeting you two. So thank you for what you're doing, because this is so wonderful for the greater audience out there. So thank you both for what you guys are putting into this, and what you're sharing. So greatly appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed this evening or today. And I love the connections, like Todd was saying, and forming a connection with you, and sharing your art journey with us. It's always just so enlightening. And I always walk away feeling warm and like you're part of the family. So the Tennant family welcomes you to our family.
Thank you.
And so I do. It always feels like gaining a new friend and new family member. So thank you so much for joining us and spending so much time of your day with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Again, go check out Amy's work in person at the Coors Western Art Exhibit and Sale. It runs through January 22nd. And be sure to follow Amy on Instagram at Amy Laugesen, and check out her website at amylaugesen.com. I will have all this information and more in this week's episode notes. Remember to be good to one another. And for the Tennant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.